Wake up. It's time for Primal Scream.
Welcome back to the Primal Scream. I'm Matt.
I am Todd.
And today we have Rick Sanborn with us, everybody. Rick. And put a
Great.
smile on his face.
I'm glad to be here. Thanks.
Rick, before we get going into you and on you and all about you. Are you all right, Todd?
Into you, on you, and about you. This is not a porn movie. This is hopefully a wholesome conversation.
Thank you, Rick. Yeah. I knew you would. That's why I said it like that.
I took it really gross right away.
So. Before we get going, I would like to give a very special thank you to Jeff Johnson, who runs Penguins Comedy Club. Go to penguinscomedyclub.com. Jeff
fantastic
supplies
guy.
us with a lot of great comedians through the podcast, and he entertains the whole local area of Cedar Rapids.
And at absolutely no expense to us. I mean, he does it all on his own. I just can't believe he does such a great job with us.
Doug Thompson, the Doug T Hypnosis Show is going to be happening March 20th. Miss Pat's coming in. Not to this podcast, but she'll be performing at Penguins on February 27th, and you can see that all right there on the screen. But also, if you want your own entertainer, go to usaentertainmentagency.com, and you can schedule
a corporate
your own
gig coming up.
Yeah, festivals, fairs, weddings, whatever you want. Get a hold of Jeff Johnson. Go to usaentertainment.com, agency.com, and book your entertainment today.
Very nice.
On that note, the entertaining thing that happens on this podcast every time is Cards Against Humanity.
We hope it's entertaining.
Well, I find it entertaining.
It's fantastic.
This will be my first shot, so
and shot could be definitely part of it. So,
Todd, why don't you go over the rules?
You got it
real quick.
Okay, so the idea behind Cards Against Humanity is that you have a black question card, and you have 2 black question cards, and you have 10 white answer cards. Excuse me. And the idea behind it is that we will find out who goes first by, and this is in the rule books, which is why we love Cards Against Humanity, who had their most recent bowel movement. I have not pooped today. So, would that put me back a day, or does that mean I don't get to play? I'm out. Great.
You had to travel back in time.
Yeah.
Now, Rick, was there a bowel movement at all today?
Yes.
Okay. So
I'm vegetarian, man. It's like 2 or 3 times a day.
I didn't realize you were a vegetarian for some reason. Vegan?
Well, not even vegan. I like to say whole food, plant-based.
Okay.
WHPB.
You can eat vegan, but you could still be eating products grown that are like
toxic.
Yeah, not organic and not GMO. So whole food, plant-based. It's the
way to go.
It's the best.
Most natural.
And you shit a lot. So, when was the last time?
I would say he's got it because I didn't go today and you didn't go today.
He's got it. Okay, so, Rick, what you'll do is you're going to read one. You just take your first black card.
First black card, okay.
And read it, please.
Revealed. Why he really resigned. Pope Benedict's struggle with...
blank. Say it again for me.
Blank. Why he really resigned, exclamation point. Pope Benedict's secret struggle with...
Okay, now you're going to be the judge, okay? And Todd and I are going to peruse our white cards. We're going to find something that either tickles our funny bone or yours, hopefully.
And tries to answer.
And then you're going to close your eyes. We're going to give you the 2 responses, and then you're going to read them out loud and decide. You're going to choose basically who the better human being is.
First time ever that the first card I looked at, I was like,
boom,
got it.
All right, so I got to...
And not only did I get the card right, I got the win.
Wow, I'm not sure that...
You know what? I'm going to go with exactly what you said. First card I looked at.
Oh, you just going to be an asshole? Or did you really find a good card?
I really found a decent card.
Awesome, let's do this.
Okay, so close your eyes, sir.
Okay, got it.
All right, go ahead and open your eyes. The cards are in front of you. So go ahead and read the statement again, and then read the card.
Why he really resigned. Pope Benedict's secret struggle with blank.
So read it for each one.
Okay.
You did it. That's okay for the first one.
Pope Benedict's secret struggle with the tiniest shred of evidence that God is real.
Oh, that's nice. That is a really good one. Yeah. I'm glad I found that.
Okay. Pope Benedict's secret. God. Why he really resigned. Pope Benedict's secret struggle with the unbelievable world of mushrooms.
Ooh.
Yeah?
Psilocybin?
Mushrooms in general are pretty good for you, unless you're doing.
No, we're talking about psychotic mushrooms, Rick.
Psychedelic, not psychotic. They're not mushrooms that are chasing you down trying to kill you.
Just stick it on your book and it won't vibrate so bad.
No, but it's
Yeah,
my
that's all right.
wife.
You're fine.
I only talk to her
So,
once a day.
what was your choice there, Rick?
come on.
What do you think?
I think
This one or that
she's going to
one?
be pissed. Obviously, the God.
The God, that was...
Thank you so much.
Evidence
I'll take
that
all those
God
cards.
is real. You
I'll
take
these
everything?
cards. Yep.
Okay.
I won this card, so I'm going to keep it just like apples to apples. Right?
Yeah, and that's how he keeps score. That's how we keep score. To see who has the most black cards at the end. So I'm going to read my black card now, and
Okay,
then
then
you
we'll
can
have to
peruse your
put
white cards.
yours.
Here it is.
Okay.
My mom freaked out when she looked at my browser history and found blank.com/blank. It's a twofer, so you got to put down 2 cards. My mom freaked out when she looked at my browser history and found blank.com/blank. All right, I got my eyes closed. You guys do your thing.
And the card that we want to have read first will be on top.
The first blank.
Yep, the first blank will be on top.
Just so that it makes sense grammatically.
I'm feeling really, really good about these.
Wow.
I'm just saying.
I'm
this-
not
I
feeling
feel.
as good.
I'm
This
feeling
is the
great.
first time. This is the first
It
time
is.
in a long time.
in the
for
last.
Todd.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I've had a couple that are pretty great.
So
We good?
this goes where?
So you have to pick 2 because it's 2 blanks. So Matt, you'd read it
2,
one
I
more
see.
time.
Okay.
My mom
Got
freaked
it.
out when she looked at my browser history and found
Keep them
blank.com
separate, the 2 separate.
/blank.
Okay.
There
We
go.
good?
Looks
All
like
right, here we go. Oh, I'm so nervous. My mom freaked out when she looked at my browser history and found intimacyproblems.com /my sex dungeon. Now,
that was good.
Rick, you're a freak.
now
oh
that-
my god.
That also could be read as my browser history and found my sexdungeon.com /my intimacy problems. Either way,
Yeah.
great combination.
Yeah.
Made a lot of
yeah,
sense.
great slam on some poor
Yeah.
bastard. Good job.
Now the other one.
My mom freaked out when she looked at my browser history and found beingaddictedchildren.com /Rush Limbaugh's soft shitty body.
That makes no sense at all, but it's still funny.
All right, you know what? Let me read it the other way. History and found Rush Limbaugh's soft shitty body.com /beingaddictedchildren. Does that make any more sense?
Nope.
Not much.
All right, I'm going to go with my sex dungeon and intimacy problems.
I
I would
would
appreciate
too,
that.
yeah.
I thought that was pretty good.
Todd is rolling in it. He's 2 ahead.
And I don't hear any more shit on any more podcasts that somehow you suck all the time kind of comments. All right, here we go.
Who would say that?
What's making things awkward in the sauna? What's making things awkward in the sauna? I've never heard this black card before. I'm excited. What's making things awkward in the sauna?
My God, I have so many really, really good. Oh, they're so wonderful.
What's making things
Can I
awkward
put
in the
all my
sauna?
good cards in?
Can you just put one
All
so
right.
we can go?
All right, hold on.
Sweet.
All right.
Fantastic.
As soon as Rick's ready, we're ready.
Okay.
He doesn't know.
It's a struggle for me because I've failed miserably the last 2 times.
Yep. You don't want to look like an ass twice.
Oh,
don't want to do it.
Could you repeat
I'm just
that one more
teasing.
time?
Yeah, repeat it one more time, Todd.
What's making things awkward in the sauna?
All right, go ahead. Open your eyes. Make it happen.
Hairy scronums. I don't know.
Oh, that's gross.
What else do you find in the sauna? What's making things awkward in the sauna? Boris the Soviet love hammer. Oh, I like that. That's great. What's making things awkward in the sauna? Grandma.
Yeah. Grandma would make things awkward in the sauna.
You guys both. First of all, both of you did a great job.
Here's
Second
you,
of
Rick.
all,
Here's you,
grandma,
sir.
grandma gets it for
Grandma.
sure.
Yeah.
Boom.
Is that you?
Yeah, it's
oh
me.
man, that was good.
And I was really struggling between 3 cards.
Oh.
I had 3 really good cards. Okay, Rick, go ahead and read another black card if you
All
will,
right.
sir.
If you can't handle blank, you'd better stay away from blank.
Oh, golly.
Oh, some of these are awful. You guys, I've never done this, and these are.
It's really,
there are ones that are more awful than the one you just read.
if you're
Promise
not,
you that.
If you're not religious, it'll make you go to church and pray for your soul.
Can you read it one more time for me, please?
Oh, yes. If you can't handle blank, you'd better stay away from blank.
Okay.
All right, close your eyes. Close your eyes. It's all closed.
Yep, ready to go.
Really?
All right, remember, read the top card first.
Okay. If you can't handle graphic violence, adult language, and some sexual content, you'd better stay away from hospice care. I'd like to think that in my dying days, I would have
Some of all that.
access to. Yeah.
Oh, that was awesome.
Okay,
that was
I'll try the
great.
other.
I did a really good job.
If you can't, excuse me, if you can't handle, what's the top one, isn't it? Getting really high, you'd better stay away from eating Tom Selleck's mustache to gain his power.
I heard.
Hey, those are two pretty good ones.
A psychedelic.
Oh, that's an aphrodisiac just looking at it. So.
Which set are you going to go with?
What are you going to
Rick?
go with?
They're
a hard
both
choice.
awfully good, but I think I'm going with getting really high and eating Tom Selleck's mustache. To
Thank
gain
you
his-
so
Are
much.
you kidding
Which one
me?
is
Yes!
That's Todd.
That's
I'm
me.
so sorry.
That's okay.
You don't have
That's
to
all right. No,
apologize
he
for
deserves
anything.
I
it.
don't
You
wanna
deserve it.
reinforce- I don't want to reinforce.
You don't have to.
No, you
apologize.
deserve it, pal.
He gives me shit endlessly about me losing all the time. Oh, we had a comedian on here who I was giving
Doug
answers
T?
to, Doug T, and he just kept looking over at me going, "What are you doing? Why would
Really?
you give that card to me?
Was it
that was
Dolphins?
the worst card I
Or
ever."
was it?
It was something
Was it
that I was just trying to be
Dolphins?
silly and stupid, and he didn't even react when he read it.
Like
he looked
that.
at me and was like, "That's really horrible. Why would you put that card down?" I was like, "I don't know. I thought
Not even horrible morally, but horrible
like a bad card."
like bad, like not funny,
sometimes
like not good.
Sometimes we'll play in big groups, and we'll be like, "This will be a throwaway round," and everybody puts out their just shittiest card because we have so many cards that just don't work.
Yeah.
And so I did one of the. I want to say it was like unicorns or something that I gave him,
Yeah.
and it was just a really dumb answer. And he's like, "What the fuck, dude? This is bad."
But
I was
throughout the whole
the whole
podcast.
thing was like that, though. It was terrible.
Okay,
all right.
all right. Here we go.
Okay.
Here we go. Last one.
I got
is it?
one more.
All right, I'm sorry.
Yeah, don't
My
cut me
new
out.
favorite porn star is Joey Blank McGee. Joey Blank McGee. My new favorite porn star. I now we've had really good responses and cards so far, but I'm going to be a little surprised if you guys can pull out another round of funny responses.
All right. I'm gonna
Could you
try.
read it one more time?
Oh, sure.
I think I have it, but it's
My
not.
favorite new porn star is Joey Blank McGee.
Wow, good job, Todd. Right from memory, verbatim, word for word.
Well, this seems appropriate, but doesn't somehow work at all.
Go for
All right,
it.
Rick, I might be. Is it okay? Can I open my eyes?
Yeah, sure.
Okay,
Yeah,
here we go. All right. I might have to give you a hard time for taking this game too literally. All right. My new favorite porn star is Joey getting your dick stuck in a Chinese finger trap with another dick McGee.
That's a great
That's a
one.
hell of a middle name, Joey.
Oh my god! Did your mother give you that name?
You kiss your mother with that mouth. My new favorite porn star is Joey Police Brutality McGee.
Sounds like a great porn name. To
I
me.
really, I'm just drawn. I think my soul is just
Yeah.
magnetized to getting your dick stuck
Give it
in
to
a
Rick.
Chinese finger trap
Give it
with
to
another
Rick. It's
dick.
okay.
I got one. All right.
It was great. That was
I
a good one.
Trying to figure out where I would ever use that one. And
And bing, opportunity arose.
Yep.
You put it out to the universe, Rick.
I actually think that's one of my best things I like about Cards Against Humanity because we played New Year's Eve, which we've said lots of times in the podcast, and it must be at least 10 people. Played for like 4 hours, I think. Mm-hmm. It went on forever, and
it didn't seem like it.
It didn't seem like it, and all of our stomachs hurt so bad because, of course, Goofball over here goes off on different things and gets everybody laughing. What was the
Come
one?
on, baby. I can't go any deeper. My tummy's touching yours.
What was the one that? Yeah, it was was it the length of the penis or something like that?
Yeah, it was something. Yeah.
And for whatever reason, we were all intoxicated. And when he said, "I can't go any further. Our tummies are touching," and I was like,
"You know this?"
Come
something
on.
like that.
I could not stop laughing.
It's one of those things that you get caught up in the moment, and it only makes sense
at
because
the time. I know. I'm sorry. I'm not doing it justice because it was very, very funny, buddy. You did a great
job. Into the humor.
So when you do this, though, I mean, after a while, you get cards. You're like, why? What am I going to use this card for? And then the only one we've ever had that I really could not wrap my brain around was that horrible religious one.
What's that? Do you remember?
Yeah. Something while Buddha is...
Buddha and Shiva
are
finger banging the holes in Christ's
No, they're fucking the holes in Christ's palms.
Yeah, that was a bit much.
Trying to be offensive to all religious...
It was really trying hard, but the bad part was we had two religious people that were reading it. She couldn't read it, so she gave it to her husband, who's also religious. Yeah. And he was like, "Oh my God, what the hell?" And we prepped him. We said it's bad, but I was not ready for that kind of bad.
They didn't ask for another card and say pass or anything.
We've done that once here.
Yeah, we have
one
done
time.
That once.
Michelle passed on a card to me.
That option for some people, because
or you can be in the situation that I'm in.
Anybody who's never done it before can be really unprepared, even if they say, "Oh, it's bad." Yeah, it's not as bad as we.
No, we tried to prep like we said to you, which is like this is the most horrible, racist, sexist, gross.
Okay. Yeah, and Todd has said, I have personally been mean to Todd. I've been mean to him.
How odd.
Because
how odd that
we had
happen.
A sweet lady, and I've said this many times.
Yep.
Sitting where you're sitting as a guest, and she had laughed the first round. You know, she was kind of getting into it. You know,
it's a good icebreaker. It's a great icebreaker.
He had to read the responses, so I slid him a response that was so.
It's so I'm sitting here
for him to read
here with these cards.
A nice older lady,
and so I'm sitting here with these cards, and I'm like looking at it, and I go.
And you could just see his face growing red.
And I was like, I don't feel comfortable doing this. And I was like, well, fuck it. This is what we do. I got to do it.
And I'm just sitting here like a little devil. You know?
Yeah, he's just like, he's over there like, behind his microphone. I got him, bastard. Yeah, and it was a face full of horse cum. And I was like, and she's like a 60-year-old, and she was fine. Because earlier in that whole thing, she was like, so what's reverse cowgirl? For a sexual position, I was like, ask your husband later.
Yeah, go home.
Go home and ask your husband.
Maybe bring it up on YouTube.
Yeah.
Or maybe not YouTube.
and how
he'll let you know.
How old was she?
I don't know. She was just a little bit older.
Yeah, she's like 50.
Great shape. The owner of Sweet Raw Joy. Sweet Raw Joy.
Ever heard of it? All organic, all raw, all vegan desserts.
All right, Todd, you have one more card. Let's hear it.
Right, here we go. We are back at it.
Yes.
Kids these days with their iPods and the internet. In my day, all we needed was to pass the time was blank. Kids these days with their iPods and their internets. In my day, all we needed to pass the time was blank. Sears catalog. I was going to say Sears catalog, bra section. Hello.
You got your eyes closed?
Back in the day, we just had.
Oh, God.
Okay, so
we didn't have the internet to masturbate to.
Stop, dude. God, I wish Doug was here to tell you to shut.
Now, he would tell you to shut.
Yeah, but you're doing it now. So
but I don't do voices when there's professionals around because I know better.
The great thing is you don't do voices when non-professionals are around. Go ahead and read your cards. They're here.
They're here.
They're right in front of you, man.
People watch this, right?
Yeah.
Nobody watches this show. You're fine. Kids these days with their iPods and their internet. In my day, all we needed to pass time was opposable thumbs. Oh, true. It's kind of A for effort. Whoever I get that right. It's crazy.
I thought I would shock you by not going crazy.
Kids these days with their iPods and their internet. In my day, all we needed to pass the time was inserting a mason jar into my anus. Oh, God.
Well, that would be during
you have
canning
one
time.
Thing.
Right, during canning time.
They're so blah. And then there's one that's like, oh.
Wait, was the mason jar full? Or
in
was
my
it
days,
an
all we
empty
needed.
mason jar?
I'm going to go with opposable thumbs. Rick.
Excellent.
How'd you know
easy.
it was Rick?
Well, because you were laughing so hard at your own joke.
All right. Well,
and I won.
So do we all have 2 cards apiece?
No. Todd pulled it away.
I won.
Todd pulled it out.
Okay.
Todd pulled the mason jar out of his ass and won the game, everybody. Hey, if you want to have your own great time, go to cardsagainsthumanity.com. Order yours today for $25. You can download it for free, but seriously, just
That's the best part. They are open source. They will let you do just about anything with their product. But
Well, the great
give
part
them your money.
is
Give them your money.
that it's an option. The great part is that it's an option. But
Sure.
for $25, it gives you good card stock. You don't have to deal with any of this stuff. Get all the expansion packs.
Or you can
There's
get the
5 of them.
21-inch, bigger, blacker box and get everything.
Now, yeah. And I'll say this. I say this, but it should be on their logo. The bigger, blacker box, it's 17 ounces of pleasure and pain.
Ew.
All it says is that it weighs 17 ounces. But it should say it's 21 inches long and it's 17 ounces of pleasure and pain.
Don't think for a second they didn't think that was involved in the idea behind a 21-inch box that's 17 ounces and it's bigger and blacker. That there were not going to be connotations taken away from that.
All I'm saying is, as of right now, which is February 21st.
Yes.
It's not on their website. Eventually, they're going to hear me say this, and then they're going to change it, and I'm going to say, "Told you so." Sounded great. That came from Matt, the Primal Scream. Let's move on.
Yes. Who we have today?
Rick Sanborn.
Sweet.
Now, Rick, we're going to be talking about a few different things. A lot of it having to do with climate change and things of that nature. But first, if you want
Can I say first?
No.
But first, see, whether you like it or not, I'm doing it.
You're going to do it.
So first off, you are going to be part of the Metro project that we're currently working on with Metro High School, correct?
Yes, actually, I just participated in an interview because I was once a teacher there.
Okay, so they didn't drag you off the street. You were a teacher at Metro.
They actually, yes, they knew who I was when I got there.
How'd that go for you?
It was great fun because just seeing the kids participating in that fashion and sort of developing comfort with interviewing and running the cameras, it was just great.
Yeah. It was very nice for me when I showed up. Things were kind of all prepared and ready to go because I hadn't been there in a couple weeks. I've tried to make it in when I can. I've made some. I booked some times to go in there, and then for whatever reason, things would fall apart. So I would be sick, or somebody else would be sick,
Right.
or
She had the curtain hanging ready.
yeah, the
Chairs
backdrop.
ready,
She had it just
microphones
so.
were ready, and the cameras
So
were all
awesome.
set.
I was very impressed. I was like a proud parent. I walked in. I was like, "Wow, you guys! So you've worked out the sound. You feel comfortable with everything." And she goes, "Yes." So you showed up. The students walk in and she gives them just a tiny bit of direction, just enough.
Off we go, yeah.
Off you guys go.
Wow.
And then she said, Matt, why don't you come with me? We're going to go into this other room and you can give a lesson on Premiere Pro.
Cool.
Wow, that's so neat.
It was just me and the students, the interviewer and the cameraman.
Yeah. I thought that was great.
The other adults were
So
gone.
well done with your mentorship, and they had it all planned out, ready to go. Pretty great, huh?
Yeah. And it just happened
good on
to
you
be
guys.
a good chance for me dropping in since I live out of state.
And the idea that, I think that's only maybe the second or third or fourth interview they've done.
Oh, yeah.
Look into the future after the 75th interview that they've done and see how much better they are and how much more confident they are about their interviewing skills, how much more confident they are in front of the camera.
Other programming.
Well, I can only imagine you're getting them great direction. I can only imagine this will be our 76th podcast. Wow. And I would think that we've gotten better as time goes along.
Not really.
I don't think so either. I was thinking the same thing as I said it. I was like,
We're
I don't
about
think
the exact
about the same thing. A little rough on the edges. I have to go to the bathroom right now. There's lots of things that are happening.
Something you should have done before we started.
Exactly. Mom didn't tell me to go pee before I started.
Right?
Yeah, a professional.
Professional would
do
just
that.
stick himself with a catheter.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Pee into a bath.
But you wanted to talk about some current events, right? We're going to start with some current events real quick.
Well, I wanted to do a couple current events that will relate later to what Rick wants to talk about when it comes to climate change, because Iowa, in particular, and this is on the Good News Network, by the way, that an Iowa bill is going to give excess solar power. So if you get extra power from solar panels that are on your house and you feed that back into the grid, they are going to give that power to the poor. And I thought, wow. I would be happy to give that extra power to offset my own bill that I would probably accumulate anyways because the sun's not shining all the time, back into the grid to take care of my power bill. But there are going to be some businesses that are going to be giving their power to the poor if they have excess power from their solar panels. That's amazing.
What I like about the website, and
idea.
you can see it on the screen right now, is Iowa bill would give excess solar power to the poor. Yes. But then the picture that they show clearly is not an Iowan home.
It's Arizona, at least Arizona,
Or
if not
Florida.
Southern
Yeah,
California.
Florida.
There's no way. There's no way you have tiled roofs in Iowa.
I'm thinking this is like Palm Springs right here. This is
Probably,
what
yeah.
I'm thinking. Yeah, out there in the corner. Well, you know what? You're right. I was gonna say maybe they don't have a lot of pictures of solar panels. There's plenty of places around here that have solar panels they can take pictures of. Sure. You don't have to find a stock photo of it. But I still think it's a nice idea.
Out by
Nubo Market.
Nubo Market and the Cherry Building, they have
Steve
a
Shriver.
huge solar array.
Yeah.
Yeah, on the country, the small town of Anamosa, I saw the couple of huge buildings that have panels on top of them. Just recently put in, installed.
Well, and the cool thing is about Steve Shriver and Ecolips, they put the panels up and then they decided, well, if we have extra power, we'll just give it to the community. We'll just give it away. We don't need this just for us. Yeah. They started out thinking that way. Along the same lines of renewable power was Portland. All of their new water lines are going to have... this is terrible. Sorry.
What?
I read the article on it. I'm just
messing
totally
this
blanking.
up.
I know I'm
Yeah.
fucking up. It's crazy. So they have...
I'm sorry, just real quick.
Yes.
Gather your thoughts, but here's a picture of Ecolips solar power in the Nubo area. It went up in 2004.
Yeah, it's been there for a while. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so Portland.
Okay.
Now, when you have water that's exiting houses, excess, it's gray
Excess
water.
runoff.
Gray water, okay. They now have, there's no thing in particular.
There's what?
Sorry.
What were you going to say? Did you know what you were going to say?
Yeah, I did. What do you call it? Hydropower. Okay.
Okay, yeah,
so they
sure.
put these water fans into their new water system pipes so that any water flowing through the pipes hit these fans and generate. It's going to be happening anyways.
Sure.
So now they have them generating power from water just hitting excess water going down the pipe.
I mean, what a great idea.
It's so fucking smart. I mean, it makes complete sense all the way around.
A lot of. Did you ever see the show 50 Years After? I think it was called After Humans.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that show.
And then they would show the time progression of, if all humans were gone, how would civilization revert back to Mother Nature? And they were showing Manhattan, and all the streets would fall back into what the natural course of the rivers were.
Yeah, New York City had some creek or river that ran through it that they showed how it would re-flow right back where it was.
So, you think of hydropower and having that in a creek or a river or a dam, and then thinking, we'll just put it in the river, the drains, the runoffs, and that the drains are going in the natural ways that the rivers used to go anyway. I don't know. I thought it was kind of a great.
And this is a small turbine in the pipes spin the flowing water spins them and sends energy into a generator.
Yeah.
So it's super simple with the idea
They've
of
been around for a long time. It used to be just small setups that people had out in the country when there was a little stream by to generate a little electricity. Now it looks like they're using it, commercially within all the lines.
Well, it makes sense
when a tremendous amount of water. Yeah,
when you have mass populations of people that are using that much water that just naturally are going to generate. I mean, they talk about having houses that when you have water draining from the second floor to the basement out your sewer, and it's the water from your tub or your sinks or when you wash dishes, they now have things you can buy that have coils that wrap all the way around that pipe, all the way down to the ground because water pulls to the walls of the pipe when it drains out, and it makes all those copper pipes full of water heat. It's so simple. All you need to do is get copper piping that wraps around something that'll help kind of transfer water or heat from one water source to another.
I think there's ingenious ideas on how to.
It's all about rethinking as opposed to the old style of thinking, which was extract and use. Don't worry about what happens afterwards.
Easy. Yeah. What is the easiest way to do something? And that's what it really came down to.
There's a wonderful couple who are engineers who have developed hexagonal panels that will fit into the roadway, and every roadway in the United States, if it had these panels on them, would generate something like twice the electricity that we need. And these are heavy-duty handle huge trucks panels that have built-in heating systems because of the electricity, so that they melt the snow off it as it falls, so it's not ever.
And they also have lights in them as well, and they can be solar. I mean, there's a lot of different things to that, right?
Yeah, the lights that are in them, if they're, say, in a parking lot, the lights kind of show actually as a deer walks across the road, they light up as they step across them. So you will see them coming up if you can't see the animal. In the parking lots, if you've got two parking pieces set aside for handicapped, and those two get taken, the ground can relight and add another one so that a third one is there and just shines up.
That
sounds amazing.
But Rick, what would happen if everyone that shows up is handicapped that day?
That would create a bit of a problem, so everybody else would park way.
You'd have to rethink the rethinking.
The devil's advocate, that's too much right there. My only devil's advocate point of view would be, let's talk Interstate 80 from San Francisco to Washington, D.C. Could you pave? I mean, we're talking about a trucking industry in the United States that is crazy important in a way until we find other ways of transferring food and transferring products. But could you turn Interstate 80 into, I mean, have you ever heard of Interstate 80 never, ever, ever having construction on it? Because even they've had 100 different types of cement that they've tested now that wear a certain way, but at the same time sheet off water and sleet and ice. And I mean, I'm all for anything that would be, that's the solar panel. I mean, I think I saw that where they had like, it generated power from the ground to do the things you were talking about. So you had roadways that were generating energy because they're just absorbing heat in the sun.
This was picking up solar.
So, I mean, why would you not do that nationwide with everything?
Yeah, but your question was, do we ever think that Interstate 80, and then you didn't finish the question.
I'm sorry. I don't think it's possible at this point that they've actually tested, 100,000 semis a day passing over a small solar panel?
I would encourage you to go to this site because...
Well, it's Denmark, correct?
No. It's in the United States. And it's a husband and wife who are both engineers. And solar roadways would probably get you to the site. But they just recently got a grant from the Department of Transportation or whatever here in the States to...
The crazy genius behind solar roadways.
Is that it?
That's the first thing that popped up on Google.
Oh, okay. Let's see if it's them.
Not that's Google.
No.
All right, what do I got to pull up here? What do I got to type in?
I would say solar roadways.
I typed in husband, wife, solar roadways. And they have a fake moose crossing a road.
Oh, I see it. Yeah. That's on YouTube.
Yeah. And it's probably an interview with...
Jesus.
Sorry about
Is that you? All right.
That was me.
Well, you know what? I go into this. I go into this mode of like, is this so crazy because it's not feasible, or this is so crazy? Why are we not doing this as soon as possible?
I think that
here's the hexagonal. Here's a picture.
I think how it would start would be that local parks where kids have basketball courts and tennis courts or whatever, that's more likely, or parking areas is more likely where this will start until they prove it. But it's something like 2 or 3 inches of this heavy-duty glass that covers the exterior of it, and the panels are elevated. There's a trough that runs next to the freeway to channel the water away. It's a huge, well thought out project. You can see the tractor.
That sounds like it would take a tremendous amount of engineering.
Todd, check it out.
Yeah,
check it out behind you.
You've got 2 engineers doing that.
Yes.
That's how they
see that
designed
tractor on there.
Yeah.
Well, that's also not a.
I can see
16-wheeler.
I can see a 16. Well, I can see a 16-ton salt and sand truck from Des Moines, Iowa, clipping one of those fucking hexagon things.
But they wouldn't need it because that thing generates its own heat to melt snow and ice.
Yeah, so it removes it, and it also channels it away immediately. So
awesome.
You're right; they would have to stay off those tracks if they've got damaging equipment.
And then when the water and the snow carve out a large chunk of highway from the water not being directed the right way, and it collapses.
Are you a Debbie Downer today?
No, I'm not. But I keep, this is what people are going to say. This is the only reason I'm saying it. I am all for this. I am all for this. Don't get me wrong.
I think the best thing to do is go to the site, read the materials. See.
For sure.
Everyone always projects their project as.
And I think, like I said,
the world in some capacity, and I think it's a great idea. You can see the roadway that that's there. It's
right,
an
and I think
elevated
this is a
roadway
picture of
with drainage, and the battery system is hidden within that, as well as
I think for sure things like this can happen because every
Immediately.
piece of road has to be redone.
Yeah, at some point.
It's nothing is good forever, and our infrastructure, what Obama talks about, putting money towards. Of course, it's like a no-brainer. Everything is going to have to be replaced and worked on, bridges, roads, all that stuff.
So when you redo the roof on your house, you really should redo the roof on your house as well as get solar shingles or something. I mean, is that kind of along the same lines?
Kind of. I would say almost for sure. This was a conversation I had with my mother a couple of years ago.
Oh, Bubby.
Oh, Bubby. She had to get her roof redone. And I said, well, before you put just the normal asphalt shingles on, have you looked at the solar shingles? Something that would give you a little bit of money back. And she goes, yeah, I guess I have, but that would just take, I don't know, 15, 20 years to get my money completely back.
That's legit.
No. Now it's down to like 6 or 7 years. It's not 24 years.
But the big white elephant in the room
But it's
that we're all
expensive as
missing
shit.
is, do you ever get money back from an asphalt shingle? No, you don't.
Or the electric
You'll never get
company.
money back from the other way.
Yeah.
But I mean, the idea of but I won't get my money back for 15 years, but you won't ever get money back from
So
an
what you're
asphalt
suggesting
shingle.
is we need to think a little farther into the future.
Yeah, think about.
Well, and do those solar shingles last longer than a normal asphalt shingle? I assume they would. No?
There have been solar shingles that have come and gone. The steel roof is like the most durable type of roof right now. So I don't know what the latest greatest thing is with solar roofing right now, but back then, I just remember back then having that conversation with her, and she threw out this argument, which to me was not an argument. You know, the idea that, yes, I'll get money back, but it won't pay for itself for 15 years. But the other way, it wouldn't pay for it at all.
Anyways, yeah.
At all. Nothing.
That's a good point.
And if you were to talk to some of the 15,000 climate scientists who are talking, they would say anything you can do to transfer over to solar as opposed to using fossil fuels is an absolute
Must.
That was an
necessity.
incredible segue. Well done. Do you think that as much as climate change is important to you, as one of the reasons why you're here today is to talk about it, and you know how important you feel like it is for your kids and your grandkids, do you feel like it's almost like a Michael Moore kind of comment when he said that, you know, so if Dick Cheney wants to rule the world and run it into the ground, that's great because at some point we'll all be gone and the earth will recover all by itself.
Well,
it's a very kind of doom and gloom kind of
Sure.
point of view, but do you ever feel like if we did everything, so we start doing solar roadways, we have fucking wind turbines everywhere, everybody's doing their absolute utmost, recycling everything, using gray water for everything to wash stuff and take care of things. You did everything you could to change things right now. Do you really feel like it would have an impact on how the world is working and changing the catastrophe we're kind of heading towards?
Yes, I think that we need to make a change, and many people suggest this, much like the transition that was carried out during World War II, when Roosevelt said, no more cars are produced from this point on. We shift all to building planes and jets. In 6 months, they were in production.
Oh, yeah.
At that point, there were no more cars, and they were doing 4 million cars a year at that point. For 2 years, nobody bought cars. You bought parts for your car. The shift was made. I mean, a good example also was when they were seeing that the ozone hole was being damaged by stuff, and they finally made legislation, and you can watch the graph that, you know, and then it tipped off, and no longer was that found in the air, and the hole began
That was
to
from
recover.
aerosol cans and
Sure.
things like that.
Yeah.
Fluorocarbons, correct?
Fluorocarbons, yes. So
Ooh, I pulled that way out of the
there's a
back of my
good-
memory.
There's a good example of there saying that if you should take the action. Now, there are scientists who will say there's enough stuff in the air right now, this, you know, whatever extraction continues, that we could be at a tipping point already. But for me,
That's what I've heard.
for me as an
I've heard we're
individual-
done, kind of like we are in serious trouble.
Yes, and for me, I can't take my eyes off of the ball, which is
Keep hope alive.
That gives me no inspiration to do any work. In fact, creating fear, which may actually be the truth of the fact, if it were true. Creating fear creates apathy and hopelessness, and then no one wants to do anything.
Well,
And
the hope is he creates action, though.
for me, yes, but if you scare people enough, they may go, oh,
Well, I'm done.
I'm outta here
I'm
anyways.
going to die anyway.
we'll all party and hug our family, and that's what we'll do.
Let's all go to Denver.
Bring our children together. For me, there are so many issues sort of coming together at this point in history, this unique, never before seen in the history of man, period of history, that I am hopeful. I mean,
What are some of the things that are all happening at one point that you feel like is
I
kind of
would
pointing in
say,
that direction?
Well, all of the little environmental groups that have been working hard, some working very hard for a long period of time, and new ones that have come along, are all, when an issue is action needs to be taken, all come together. Much like, though I saw little news of it in most of the Iowa papers that I was in touch with, 400,000 people arrived in New York last November, and to
Climate change
to
rally.
encourage the people who are getting ready for the why am I was in New York? Who's there? United Nations. I apologize. The United Nations were getting ready for this December for their meeting. Now, for the last 26 years, they've been meeting to do something.
And nothing's happened?
Nothing yet. And they always have a young, inspiring speaker at the beginning of
Charismatic.
a young
Sure.
16-year-old kid from the Philippines or in some island that's beginning to go underwater, and they give these impassioned speeches, and I mean they're endless amounts of them. They're all in their 30s now, some of them, and nothing gets done. And who is the biggest roadblock to taking action?
United
The
States.
U.S.
The United States. And yet we like to think we lead the way. And
Oh,
the
fuck
world-
that. We don't lead shit.
And the
when it
world-
comes to climate change
And
and,
the world-
oil and
and the
energy, that's
world
the
is
idea
leading.
behind it.
And yet, if you focus on the negative, you can say, yeah, it's horrible. These are rogue
Don't do shit.
businesses who, even though if I had $1 trillion in the ground and I had access to pulling that out, that's tempting because
Sure.
if money is all that you care about. But if the new research that's out, it came out recently in Nature magazine, was that and they looked at kind of all the what's in the ground still yet to be extracted of what they are aware of, the gas, the coal, and the oil. 80% of what we know is there that we could extract has to stay if we expect to stay under the worldwide agreement of not increasing the climate by more than 2 centigrade of temperature. 80% has to stay. Well, I'm sorry if I'm a petroleum industry guy and I'm making my $130,000 a day. That's tempting. One more house.
Well, and the idea too. I don't think it's.
15
I think
more
it's.
cars.
I think it's beyond the cars and the extra houses of my stockholders expect me to have this growth each month. And you've made this comment before. Can we keep exponentially increasing these stocks and have this coming back to us all the time when it's got to stop at some point? At what point did we just keep on making money and keep generating things and manipulating things?
It stops just like it stopped
Right.
For the Great Depression. It stops just like it stopped for 2008 when it stopped just like it stopped for Enron. That's when it stops.
But who creates the social world that makes that happen? Because
media.
Because
the media. And we follow along like blind sheep.
Well, but then there are the petroleum industry, the fossil fuel industry are the largest businesses in the world. They make the greatest money each year, and they invest in scientists and individuals who will promote. They don't have to do a big controversy, but they just want to create doubt in our minds.
enough.
And listen,
doubt.
and
if it's a little bit confusing, then people go, well, what can I do?
I'm going to be a devil's advocate
Go
for
ahead.
a second.
Please go ahead.
I'm going to dumb this down in the sense of, okay, so I'm a guy who's making $1 gazillion a year, and I enjoy my paychecks, and I enjoy my kids having so much money they'll never have to worry about it, and my kids' doing the same thing. Or I can be a guy who's saying, okay, I was hired to do this job. Yes, I'm making a shitload of money. I'm hired to do this job. I keep so many millions of people employed throughout the world, if not the U.S., from me all the way down to the smallest oil driller guy, and then I have the small company who has a 401k that's investing into something that has to do with my petroleum company, and I need to make sure my profits are still going up and still working so that their 401k doesn't crash and they don't have retirement for the people who have been working for 20 years for them. I can see that being an issue of somebody thinking not just the wealth. And trust me, I'm with you when I think of greedy fucking assholes who are only there to say, I'm extracting this stuff from the ground so I can have more money and more cars. There are definitely people out there like that. For the guy who is thinking, I want this company to succeed, I want the people who are investing in this company to succeed, because if this company doesn't succeed, the littlest guy kind of loses out. I wonder if there's an alternative to that.
Sure. The alternative is, if you are running a company that is part and parcel of the destruction that's being caused in the environment, which then creates, you're looking out for your employees and the people. Let me go backwards. They are going to, obviously, when there's a transition, and I believe everybody agrees that we need to move to renewable energy.
Yeah, I would agree.
The question is, when will that happen, how will it happen, and how fast will it happen? Scientists suggest that we need to have it have started 30, 40 years ago, when the solar cells were put on top of the White House, which only been recently replaced by President Obama.
Oh, I thought Carter's stuff was ripped out immediately.
It was. As soon as Reagan was in, he pulled those out.
Right.
I thought they were unattractive. Had we begun doing what we needed to do to start shifting then, we would not be in as rough a place as we are now. But if I'm an individual who has some children,
okay,
and I have a business that I know is in itself ultimately destructive to the environment, I have to weigh that against the future of my children and other people's children. There will be winners and losers as you make the shift, but much like the car industry shifted, we had lots of guys out of work who then had to be retrained in some other field because it was the way things were moving.
They're building tanks instead of cars.
We have to move towards renewables.
I have not heard that example before. As being a person who is very much involved in history, they took our automotive industry and changed it overnight. Mm-hmm. You're absolutely right. I never even thought about that as being a perspective of why, if it's important enough, why can't we do that? But that's the point, though, is that you don't have people who think it's important enough, because it's too fucking hard. If you had to say, listen, Matt, good example.
Okay.
We're talking about Obamacare. And you're fucking pissed because your shit went up. Your premiums went up. Okay?
Yeah.
It doesn't make you happy. You have to pay more money. You're fucking stuck. Okay? But guess what?
I don't think you ever hit record on that camera over there.
You said you started everything.
No, I said hit record on that camera over there.
Oh, my God, dude.
It's okay. That camera and that camera hit. There you go. There's the red button. There's the red light.
That wasn't even on. I started that. Thank God.
Oh, so we do have everything going now?
Except for that camera.
We can start over, Kevin.
No, that's okay. I mean, we're fine.
Okay, so my point is that you were saying that Obamacare was screwing you because your premiums went up. Does it matter to you that 30 million more people now have better health care coverage? Pre-existing conditions don't matter. College kids who didn't have any coverage at all, that now when they get something happens, they have coverage to their parents. It'll actually save all of us a tremendous amount of money. I know your premiums went up, and it sucks for you, but you need to take a hit because we helped out this many more people. It's along the same exact lines of that.
I think that these big issues get really clouded, and the part that I wish that we could do, what I wish could happen more so, is remove emotion, because everything that we've talked about is so emotion packed. Climate change, people are so emotional about it. If you're a Republican and you own an SUV, if somebody brings up climate change, a lot of times people have said this to me who are Republican and own SUVs. The majority of these people say, Jesus Christ, that's such a bunch of bullshit. Where'd you read that? Oh, sure, everything's the truth on the internet. Yeah, you saw it on the internet. It's got to be the truth. They get so emotional. They get so pissed, right? Yes, Obamacare pisses me off. There's a lot of things that are so tied with emotion with the government now, only because my faith in the government has been rocked to its core. I don't trust anybody in politics anymore. Not a single fucking person. I can't trust anything they say because they have their talking points and they lie and they go on their little political runs, to their campaign runs, and they make promises, and then they get into office and they don't do a goddamn thing.
And so they
don't affect any change. No, I'm not. Just wait. Hold on. I'll let you talk in just a second. They do those things and it ruins people's faith in what should happen. Okay. So, do I think that we should have universal health care? Sure. I think people should have that. I don't think that we should be patting ourselves on the back and saying, rah, rah, Americans, we're the best, when all these other countries have universal health care. When other countries, the poorest person can go in and get helped out or checked out, and that's fine. But I am so jaded by the insurance companies and the doctors and the lawyers and the politicians and the upper 1%ers. I feel like I am continuously being screwed. If my phone rings ever and it's not a family member, you're trying to fuck me out of some money. That's the immediate emotion I get. And it could be, Matt, could you give $1 to your local hunger charity so that young children don't starve tonight? I would be like, fuck off, don't call me again. Click. Because I am jaded to the fact that I don't believe my $1, my whole $1, will go to a child that needs food. I'm jaded and thinking that 96% of that dollar is going to go to you and your corporate fucking meatheads. And just a tiny little bit of that money is going to go to where it should go. Now, this is kind of a segue into what we were going to talk about, which I've talked to you about before we started recording. Situations are so... I wish I could detach my emotions from that, like what a conversation I had with a coworker the other day about American Sniper. Okay.
Well, it's not an odd segue because it seems like the person with the SUV who gets so pissed off about certain things tend to lean a little bit more conservative.
I know, but everybody puts what I'm saying is everybody, including myself, puts too much emotions into decision making. We should look at the facts, and we should think of what's the best course of action.
If the climate is that important to you enough that you get upset and passionate about it, like Rick is talking about, I mean, that makes sense to me.
I know, but when legislation gets passed, and then you look at the bill, and you find out that the taxes that are going to be coming out of my paycheck every pay period, there's pork in this bill that is going to be paying for a bridge to nowhere. That's what makes people go, nope. I'm not gonna tell my congressman to vote for that bill because somewhere along the line, some asshole has muddied the waters, and I don't have any faith in you. So yes, the best thing to do is to make changes for climate change, but I can't expect anybody in the government to do something. I'm like, no, I'm 100% behind what you just said because someone's going to destroy the bill.
Before we get to the suggestion for
go ahead,
the sniper, American Sniper, this works backwards. I think you can't separate yourself from the emotionality of it. The emotionality of the way you feel when you hear someone requesting more money from you, when you know there are so many inequities out there, whether it's from our government or for our representatives. But I think most organizations that are active now, who are fueled by people and not necessarily a lot of money, recognize and make the assumption that it will not be their politicians who will do the work, that it will not be their elected officials, that they have to work grassroots to make things happen. Let me give you an example. Citizens Climate Lobby is an organization that is working on encouraging the Congress and wants to pass a bill that is a carbon fee dividend. Okay, it's grown out of the carbon
Exchange kind of thing.
Yeah, but it's a much better deal. They have written the bill, and their concern has been everybody has to tie on to this if it's going to work. Republicans have to support it as well as Democrats, though they would expect maybe Democrats would be more supportive of it. But what's the deal that Republicans don't want to do? They don't want to claim they raised taxes.
Sure.
There's no tax raised in this. However, at the site of the extraction, you pay a fee based upon tonnage and carbon, whatever.
Can you describe more the site of extraction, like when you're pulling oil out of the ground?
Oil out of the ground, where you're pulling the coal out of the ground, when you're drawing gas out of the ground. There's a figure, and I couldn't tell you exactly what it is. But for an example, maybe you pay $10 per ton of carbon extraction drawn out from coal. Coal would be the dirtier and unfortunately probably would suffer more. But we all know that we need to get rid of that altogether. Each year it would increase, but so it would be a slow increase in a fee that the companies would have to pay to assist in the transition to renewables. All of that money collected gets given back to the populace in a dividend. So there's no taxes being raised.
That would be great.
But they recognize the emotionality of the issue. Republicans have some Republicans who maybe middle, in the middle ground that you might consider, not quite as vocal or out there on the edge, have environmental groups come in and just harangue them and scream at them and yell at them, and they just like they're not prepared. They may not have all the information, but the Citizen Climate Lobby recognizes they need to be informed. Their intention is not to necessarily anger anyone, but say, here's what you can do that would work. We're going to work with you to help you get there.
You can't berate anybody into helping
you're
work with you.
You're not going to raise taxes. So. Now, I thought, that's kind of a fool's errand. This is one project they're focused on, but I'll tell you what, I've never seen a more brilliantly organized, focused, sensitive, emotionally managed group that is approaching this with what would you say, due diligence. It's only been around for like 2 or 3 years, and they have a representative or an individual or a small group in every single district of every representative's in the United States.
Is there one for Lynn County?
Sure.
Who's your Lynn County rep?
I'm not sure who the individual is. I've been in Colorado, so I haven't, and I only recently.
You're in Colorado. Are you high right now?
No, I'm not.
Okay.
I'm not.
Good for you. I don't know. I thought everybody in Colorado's high. That's my bad. My bad. Sorry.
Illegal to come back to Iowa and be doing that.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think if you look at any group, for example, the transition movement, their premise is we don't expect our government officials to do this. It's up to us to do it. So recognizing that, it's all our tasks. So it basically, we can pine and complain about the lack of action in the government, but if we wait for them to do something knowing they're not going to do anything, that's, to me, the true fool's errand.
And there's a lot of people that aren't.
We have to take action.
Right, but there's a lot of people who aren't just, you're waiting for, like, I wouldn't wait for government to take action. I'm not waiting for them to do something and saying, oh, thank you for saving me. Like Shane Smith with Vice. He runs Vice News. He goes around the world and does interviews with people. He's interviewed warlords that are cannibals. You know,
and he was invited into North Korea when who's the basketball player? I'm blanking on his name. Who's the
with
guy
all
that
the piercings?
Kim Jong-un had the basketball player came in. So he followed him into North Korea to do the kind of like a autobiography of kind of what was happening.
Right.
And as soon as they saw that they were not just doing a fluff piece for, God damn, what's his name?
Robbins?
Dennis
Rodman.
Yeah.
Rodman, yeah.
They kicked him out right away. And they were never allowed back in again. But yeah, they do kind of like, they call it guerrilla journalism because it's the really only thing besides RT and some of those other places that are out there nowadays.
It's almost like one of those things where you're constantly given the evidence that none of these people who say they're going to make a change are going to make a change. I'm talking like government and huge entities. And it takes somebody like Shane Smith, this guerrilla journalist, to go out with his own money. We're like, well, why don't we know about that? The scientist said that the sea level could rise by up to 3 or 4 meters. That remaps the world, Shane Smith remarked. Shouldn't we be making a bigger fucking deal about this? You know me, I'm not a tree hugger. I'm a fucking beer drinking, football loving, steak eating guy. But when I see shit like this, I go, why the fuck aren't we freaking out? Because all the wars in the world don't matter if we have 3 or 4 meters of sea level rise. The rising seas won't directly result in deaths because people can move away from the coast, Smith said. The problem was the massive displacement of people would result in urban chaos. And then he looks at Bangladesh and the fact that India has built a huge wall on the border of Bangladesh, and they are not letting anybody. It's like they see that this is going to happen, sure. And they don't want these millions of people from Bangladesh rushing in because
they already have millions and millions of people. Yeah, I bet.
But what he's suggesting, I think, in his actions, he's taking personal action to become informed and then attempt to inform other people. It is all our responsibilities to go out and become informed, to seek all the information you can, to really give yourself an informed background so that you can make decisions in your own personal life, in the local life of your community, and spreading out. Yeah, it's going to melt. It's going to melt. And yes, the seas will rise. And some people will say, well, that's not such a bad thing because, okay, we'll have a little bit less land, but somehow we'll all work it out. If there isn't a plan and people aren't anticipating and working towards
unless you live in Iowa and you're set.
Then except that the Mississippi will grow much larger, and there'll be it'll connect with the Great Lakes.
Or the government comes in and says, sorry, we're taking your land because we need to house people. Sorry. I was going to say, along with what you were saying earlier about you guys guiding representatives or people in Congress saying, hey, we're going to work with you, and I could see you, the groups writing these bills to help them realize that we're not trying to screw anybody. We're trying to guide you to see how we can all benefit each other. Mm-hmm. I would agree. I would say that we talk about how corporations have written bills in Congress already. So
still doing it right now.
So they take the opportunity of, say it's me, and I don't know jack shit about anything. And so somebody says, well, hey, we kind of were wanting to write this bill to go this direction because if we do this and we do this, then this happens. We'll give you we'll fund your campaign and we'll just help you out a little bit. And you go, okay, I don't see the harm in any of that. So, I mean, it sounds like you're going to be taking the playbook from a group of people who are already doing all those things, manipulating Congress to guide them, but more in a more positive way. Not for corporations.
I suppose you could interpret it as manipulation, but there is no promise of money. There is no money for these other groups who are basically using human power to get in and talk individually with their congressmen.
That's a good point.
For example, once a year, at this point, this is their second year, they will be going to Congress in July and spreading out and lobbying. Well, nobody's paid. They're all paying their own ticket to get there, but they see it as important enough to be if we're going to be a representative government, then we have to be vocal enough to let them represent us. We have been extremely passive in our responsibilities to keep an eye on, and oftentimes we'll say, oh, well, the big corporation, they got so much money, what chance have we had? No, it matters. Every person going in to talk to your congressman, letters that you send matter, but people don't do that anymore. Okay, and one thing else I'd like to tell you, the groups that I have been associated with, most of the people that I know who are active and see it as an issue that they have to confront and deal with probably for the rest of their lives, if it's going to matter, they don't belong to one group. They may be working with Citizens Climate Lobby, and when their efforts are necessary for training and helping other people, but you're not doing that 24/7. So you may also be involved with 350.org with some of their campaigns. A campaign that I came back here to Iowa to participate in, which is to sort of remove that social acceptability.
Sorry, and that's 350.org?
350.org.
Okay.
To remove that social respectability that fossil fuel companies have. Much like, have you heard of the divestment movement in the fossil fuel industry?
I haven't.
Sure.
Okay.
I have, yes.
That has been prompted by 350.org, and organizations around the world are divesting. I mean,
You have to.
I believe Sweden.
It's not a renewable resource, correct?
Well, the encouragement is to say, yes, not only do you need to shift but I'm a university, I have this big trust fund, and I manage that. And the students are, of course, going to them saying, so you're going to make money off of the companies that are damaging the environment for my future, that you're supposedly helping me with my future as a college community. And yet you're gaining wealth from the destruction of my environment that I will eventually face, and you guys who are older probably will be gone. I mean, there's a real separation between responsibility there. So more and more are doing. In fact, it's the fastest growing divestment movement in the history of divestment movements. The first being apartheid in South Africa. You know, when Mandela got out of prison, where did he go first? He came to the United States and he went to the Berkeley University and said, thank you. You guys started this and got it in motion, and it was the thing that pushed it all over the top and made the transformations. Now, that's what the divestment movement for fossil fuels is doing, saying, we're no longer giving you free gratis. Yes, you may get $7 billion in subsidies, despite the fact that you're already making these enormous amounts of wealth off of it. At the same time, you're destroying the climate, so there's a disconnect, and no longer will we support you. So it's becoming, as an investment, hopefully, socially unacceptable and financially unacceptable. And that is the way you reach people. If I'm in a board and I have a lot of people and they're saying, well, Rockefeller Foundation that was built on fossil fuel extraction has now divested their $80 million from my company. And they begin to see more and more happening, and it is growing. I was at the University of Iowa on the divestment day, which was last Friday, Saturday, and a bunch of little old granny ladies in the mall just trying to give information to people, get signatures to go to the university and say, divestment is a moral imperative for us. We cannot benefit from the destruction of the planet. So please divest.
Do you feel like it's a knowledge thing? Do you feel like it's people understanding what's going on?
Absolutely.
And just not understanding what's happening?
Absolutely. So you're right. The fear factor of creating like, oh my gosh, it's all over, that's not going to be helpful. Well, it could scare you into action, but I know a lot of people who are scared into apathy. So I would much rather say, yes, it's a huge problem. We're going to be dealing with it for the next 50 years. You can do something about it, and here's what you could do. In your own community, what you can do to relocalize and create your community, making it more resilient, reducing the fossil footprint for bringing products in because you're growing a lot of your own. Not that you completely separate yourself from the wider world, but you begin to diminish those unnecessary demands. If you're growing your local product that you build your houses out of, you're not bringing it in from somewhere else. You're not destroying forests somewhere else. If you're growing your own food, most of it locally.
If we pass the weed bill and we can start farming hemp, and we can start using hemp as clothing and building materials and things like that,
because the environmental impact on that is enormous. It's enormous.
In a positive way, or
negative? Yeah, positive or negative?
In a positive way. It's enormous. The idea that I think that I want to say it's Joe Rogan's podcast that talked about who is the gentleman who has a house, the Hearst's family.
Sure.
When he found out that hemp and cotton were going to battle, he owned a lot of cotton farms, and so he made sure that marijuana was associated with hemp. That was causing all these issues, and got cotton to be the main source of making paper.
Yeah.
And they started a slander campaign in the newspapers saying that colored men who are after your white women, their choice,
Right.
their drug of choice is marijuana.
So this is
And back then,
this is-
and then it was like, wow.
So one this is where I bump into things where I try not to be too down and out about the possibility of things fucking changing.
Because
Is you had one guy in the 1930s, 40s
Yeah, around that time. I couldn't give you the time exactly.
changed everything.
Yeah.
His one perspective and his one monetary gain, his one guy's one focus on one thing changed everything.
Well,
and now you have a multi companies, multi-million-dollar companies that are all going to be continuing. And I'm sorry, I hate to be like the downer asshole that keeps.
I was in that seat earlier.
I felt. I
You can't help get discouraged.
You're very inspiring in your point of view about it, and it made me very hopeful. And then I very easily turn into a cynical asshole. But I get to the point where I'm like, if one person can say, oh, hey, we're not going to do this. I own all these papers. I'm going to write these stories that all the black men with these white women because of this marijuana and this hemp tie. How are we gonna change things?
It does seem overwhelming.
But I think that if you get to the point where people are running the show, you know, and when people get inspired and people start deciding that, oh, this is important to me, I think I'm going to start doing something about this. I think one of the biggest disservices that media does to us is that, you know, everybody out there has a point of view and a voice, and you know, it all just kind of like blends together into this big mishmash of noise in the background. And I feel that corporations key on that and decide that, you know, America, you know, it's the easiest thing possible. I come home every day, right, after working my 9 and 10 hours a day, and
I watched Friends. I watched Seinfeld. Wait a second.
Yeah, you were born in the 90s.
Am I dated myself?
Well done. You want to say? I mean, I think you literally fall back on human tendencies to go like, okay, so I'm good. You know, I don't fucking think about this anymore. And I've made this point on the podcast in the past that I think Republicans, and especially conservatives in particular, fall back on their ways of thinking because it's super goddamn easy. I don't have to worry about you and your goddamn planet melting. You know what? Because it's all bullshit.
All I got to do is believe in my Lord and Savior.
Yeah.
Because
Well,
he's not. When the world falls apart, I will be arisen into heaven. Hallelujah. May I have an amen.
That could be part of it. Or, you know what? Here's some guy who's just like, oh, fuck. You know, I just want to sit here and have a pork chop and have dinner with my kids and don't worry about these things. And this person's trying to get me all worked up about it. I think that we can find ourselves in those kind of like very small, narrow ways of thinking about things.
Personally, in my own life, talking to my son, with his family, and he's a busy guy, and he's very interested in the environment. And I was chatting about some of the things that I was working on, because I'm retired and have more time to do that.
Retired.
And he said, Dad, I'm just trying to get through the day. I've got my 3 children to take care of, and I have to get them here and there, and my wife's working, and I'm working, and at the end of the day, I'm just happy to be able to relax, maybe have a little glass of wine, and catch my breath. And I'm sure that, you know, some organizations take advantage of the fact that that's where most people are. I do feel, personally, that we're reaching a tipping point of information. Thank goodness for the internet. Thank goodness for people, if they really want to go searching for stuff, can find usually some legitimate information.
I'm going to tell you that I think that majority of people are in your son's way of life.
Why are you yelling?
Okay.
Now? You're yelling.
Use the levelator. It'll be all right. I'm going to say that I think most people are in your son's point of view. So what do you think that we could do to make that easier? I'm not going to search out information. If I can have my glass of wine, I'm not going to watch a YouTube video, or I'm not going to listen to some guy talk about something. I'm going to watch Brian Williams tell me whatever story is going on, and me go, oh, that's nice, or oh, that sucks, and go to bed and maybe get laid. So what can we do differently, do you think, that to change that? Because it's a very good point of view.
I think it's a matter of education. When I was educated in the 60s.
Oh, shit. Here we go.
Here we go.
God damn it.
Civil rights.
One of the books on education, because I was a teacher for many years, one of the books that I remember reading that was significant to me was, it's very important to teach people, and they called it shit detectors. They have to have a built-in shit detector so they can go, hear somebody and go, okay, and be able to ask a question that's a little deeper. I like to call that
a bullshit meter.
Thank you. Similar.
What?
Be able to ask a question or to listen to it and say, okay, that was a wonderful, there was not a bit of information in what you shared with me. Can you give me more information? Or if someone is arguing a point, saying, where did you get this information from? How did you get this information? Who shared it with you? Where did you develop this concept? Mm-hmm. So that you have a reference point when you're communicating with each other. Things have changed, so now it's just sort of yell back and forth at each other and get nowhere in many cases. But I believe, and as I work with the groups that are out there, we are reaching a tipping point because we have to. It is an absolute necessity if we expect to hang around for another 100 or so years.
Rick, let me ask you this. Do you feel like you have bumped into a conservative, and I'm going to be shitty, a Republican conservative person that you've talked to, that you've said, so these are the facts, and do you disagree with what I'm saying, and do you see a need for change? And they were like, okay, I can see what you're saying. I can see your point of view. I can see where you're trying to go. And yes, I have kids and I have a family and I get busy, and yeah, I can see through that. And I want to change these things. Have you seen that in people you've been around?
Yes, I have. Now, is it everybody awesome. I see? No.
I'm one person.
I know of one person who is a good Republican, and
they're all good Republicans, buddy.
Was astounded to hear him say that he was very much in support of my ideas, and that, or at least what I was sharing, and was very much in agreement. Obviously, he had done some research himself, and to me, that's the key. If someone has an idea that you think is really way off base and it's not based in fact, you say, would you be willing to let me share some facts with you? Without getting into the discussion. I'm always appalled when I go online and see people, Democrats and Republicans, arguing in these blogs, and I'm thinking, it's an attempt for both of them to waste each other's time. The more time you have arguing, totally. The less time either one of you are doing anything. So I think it's absolutely fruitless to get in an arguing back and forth, because then you can say, I won. You won what?
Right.
What is your real outcome? If you're really trying to help move the world in a different directions, everybody has to participate. It includes those that you may presently
and we all have to win. We all have to win. It's not a loser. We all have to be going in the right direction. To me, that was
probably the most frustrating thing over Obama's presidency, was that immediate response from the Republicans. We're going to do everything we can to make sure he's not reelected. Or that immediate response of
we will not support anything he proposes, good or bad. Which I thought,
that falls right in line with what you're saying.
To me, that sounded un-American, in that you say, I was not a big supporter of George Bush, but I certainly did not want him to fail, because anything that he did was going to affect the rest of us. So I hoped he had people who would support him and give him wise
guidance,
yeah. And hope that he would make some good decisions. So to hope that he would somehow fail miserably meant all of us were going to fail miserably.
You'd feel the results of those failures.
Yes, and has Obama done everything that people would have hoped him to do? There was the big, no, he hasn't. And yet there are some things that he has done. One could say that may be good in the long run. It may turn out to be good. Maybe it won't turn out to be good. There are things that I support that he does. There's things that he's done that I'm totally against. But he's our president. I would never say, I will never, ever work with you, no matter what you do, no matter what you propose, good or bad.
Yeah.
And so to me, that's very un-American.
Well, and politicians in general, I think that's the hard part, is that they always seem to be talking from a talking point that's only going to get them either a good vote or to try to Branston, our governor, for example, made a comment the other day on NPR that said about legalizing marijuana. He was very, very happy that mothers of kids who had epilepsy, they had lobbied the Capitol strong enough to get cannabis oil legalized for their kids specifically. And that it was
for their seizures.
For their seizures for epilepsy. And he was glad it was helping them, and he was glad that it was working well. And then, without missing a beat, he turned around and said, on the other hand, Colorado has made one of the worst decisions that has ever happened. And they have all these troubles with all their legalizing marijuana. Again, you went from this 2 points, a very specific thing, cannabis oil helping seizures and epilepsy children, to this decision by Colorado to legalize marijuana is horrible.
But if they,
without any specifics at all.
Sure, and that's the issue. If you can allow someone to be the only person speaking, making a comment that is unchallenged, or at least saying, well, where did you get your information from that? Who is telling you that Colorado is having these difficulties?
Right.
Because I would bet that the state here in Iowa is having its own difficulties with marijuana that is not being sold legally on the streets, but is being sold illegally and is underground. You know, how many people are becoming...
Well, they talk about cartels having these humongous issues because Colorado legalized weed and Washington legalized weed, that the cartels are having these enormous problems. Yeah. And in my mind, I'm like, isn't that like the end all be all for the government?
Isn't that what you want?
Fucking cartels are going down because we made a positive choice. Sure. You know, it seems like a no-brainer to me.
I have seen the medicinal places in.
You live in Colorado now?
I live in Colorado. I live in Denver, and at first I was totally unaware. But when I went looking, I could actually find them. Because
I was unaware until I walked down the street, and there's 5 dispensaries around me.
Walked through the marijuana haze.
But you would get this impression that there must be crowds of people going. I am sure that it's no more used than any other small dispensary of sorts.
Well,
it's not.
Well, it goes back to anything. People drink too much.
I'm unaware. I rarely ever can smell anything because, of course, you can't smoke it out in public. It's at your home or in the you'd have to look at the facts, and when people speak without facts, then it's indicative to you to say, wait a minute, where are you getting that information? Who shared with you that information? Can you help? Tell me where that is so I can go look too. I want to be informed. Though I trust you, you're trying to tell us the truth. I need to get more information. And those kinds of situations where someone makes a blanket statement and there's no chance to question them or get some information,
right.
That's useless information as far as I'm concerned. It leans one way, and of course there's two sides to most stories.
Right.
And it's our responsibility as citizens to become much better at that. We have basically given up what we get in our government is what we have managed to allow to happen. I mean, we can take some responsibility for it. Yes, we can say corporations are doing amazing things, and yes, they do. Presently, the climate-denying groups, as well as the large food companies that produce food that is processed, I would say, are using the same tactics that the cigarette industry used to fund separate studies that sort of provide doubt. They don't have to be outlandishly different. Provide doubt so that a person looking at it becomes confused. Like, well, this is one thing, this is the other. You really have to work hard at becoming informed. So the argument for being so exhausted that you just don't have any more energy, and don't have the time to research, I think you can't use that as an excuse. It's your responsibility to be informed if you're in a democracy. And so you go to the sources that are there. You find the time to look up material, or you find people that you trust to say, well, I know you're looking into this, tell me this stuff, and be able to ask them good questions. Don't just take everything as fact, whether it's a Democrat or a Republican or whatever their agenda is. You should be well enough informed to say, show me where that's true. Don't just tell me that's what you think. But we have people now in Congress who are able to be head of the environmental agency and think that climate change is a hoax. I mean, that's like having the fox run the chicken coop.
Which is a hell of a good job.
Sweet.
By the way,
food galore. Yeah. So I think we have to take responsibility for abdicating what is our individual responsibility. And so for me, as you were saying, how do you deal with stuff? I find a way, personally, I want to find a way to work locally, immediately within my own small household, then within my own small community to move towards resilience and push efforts that will make the community less fossil fuel dependent, and then on a county level, and then on a state level, and then on a national level. And I suppose, in a sense, I would be asking any retired individual who has the time that their children and their grandchildren often don't have to pick up the responsibility and say, we've got the time, we should do it. This is our job.
I hate to be an asshole.
You're starting this.
I'm staying off. You're right. Because I feel that way. Because I know of people who are retired grandparents who, when they heard that this ethanol plant was starting up, they took a majority of their retirement, $10,000, $15,000. That's not a majority. They took a large chunk of their retirement and invested it into this ethanol plant that was being started up. And so the minute they heard somebody say, well, it's not that great for the environment. What do you mean? It's corn instead of fossil fuels. It's better for you. No, it really costs more. It's more detrimental to the environment to make ethanol than it is to pull coal out of the ground. And they were like, no, I'm not sure about that, because they'd already invested money that was going to help them down the road, that they were thinking, hopefully, down the road, give money to their grandkids.
Why are they resisting that? Because all of us, every single one of us throughout the world, want to be right. I want to be right.
Is that what it is?
If you say what I've done, I didn't get enough information, I've made a poor choice, my investment is destructive and not productive when I thought it was, as opposed for each of us being humble enough to say, you're kidding. Well, I need that information because I don't want my investment to be destructive, and I maybe need to move that money. I obviously didn't get enough information. But we have to be humble enough to say, I may have made a mistake here. And many of us are not willing to. It's like the guy on the internet who likes to argue back and forth. And they say, God, I really nailed that Democrat the other day because he just didn't have good arguments for me. Didn't change a thing in the world in any capacity except satisfy your need to be right.
So in other words, say, okay, so I invested this money in this corporation that was making ethanol. That was a mistake. I'm going to pull my money out of that, and I'm going to apply it to somewhere else that works better.
And I need to do a lot of research. And any investor really researches well. You can't just follow someone saying, you're going to make a fortune here. This is good. You really need to say, anything I purchase has some effect. What are those effects? I need to know those effects. And when I get all the information,
I have a great idea. I think we should just let's just build a bunker. And let's just let the whole thing
fall apart,
go to fucking
blow over,
shit,
and then
go to seed, and we'll just sit back and we'll just reap the benefits, all the fertile land.
You and your selective lady, your Eve, if you will, can repopulate the earth.
I think you and me, and that wouldn't work though, because
no,
we can't make
not.
babies.
We'd have a good time.
Regardless,
we'd be looking around going, "What are we going to do with all this land?" But besides that, now what you were just saying goes with my point. I understand what you were saying earlier about there needs to be emotion in the decision, right? I do. I get what you're saying. And that group that you were talking about earlier, that's awesome. The Citizens Climate Lobby.
Or 350.org.
Or 350.org.
And there are just lots of groups now.
But
they need to gel in one big fucking group.
They do when they need to.
No. See, the
they
thing
all have different projects.
Every time something gets too big, it's like the government. Let the small schools decide what's best for them. We don't need a humongous fucking entity to screw up and make across the board, every school act the exact same way, and these are exactly the way. These are the exact guidelines for every kid. Yeah, when things get too big, that's when they get squirrely, man. They got to stay small.
Well, there has to be a medium between there, because if you have a Department of Education that is going to make sure that the poorest, lousiest school in fucking southern Mississippi, allegedly, compared to the best, greatest, most school that's going on up in the New England, and trying to find a level playing field for all those kids to make sure they get the best education possible across the board.
But what you're saying is, you have a school up here. And for people on YouTube, they can watch what I'm doing with my hands. There's a school up here that's doing amazing. They're just pumping out kids. They're doing amazing. There's a school. No, wait.
You don't dumb down that school.
You said level it out. And what is happening is it brings schools down and other schools somewhat up. And what's happening is there's a lot of teachers complaining.
I would say where you get your information, and could you share that with me?
That's a good example.
Because
I don't have. All I have is opinions from teachers that have griped to me about their situations.
Sure. And there are situations where that has occurred. There are situations where extremely impoverished schools have had some inspiring leaders who have taken those poor schools and done equally as well as the rich, wealthy schools that have lots of funding.
Right.
So there's a lot to be done.
When you say, where did you get? I base again, and I could be wrong. I shouldn't say it's happening everywhere. What I'm saying is the teachers specifically who've spoken to me about their situation, what I've seen from my own kids in classes, is we don't have time. You hear about schools shutting down music programs and shutting down extracurricular activities because we have to make more time for math and we have to have more time for this, that, or the other thing. And hey, we'll have kids do jumping jacks next to their desks so that we get in the PE time and the math time so that we can all squeeze it in together so that we can make these kids pass certain tests. Yeah, how creative. But my third grader is doing algebra. I didn't start to do algebra till I was in 7th grade. So my opinion is coming from all of these little things, right? So that's when you said, where are you getting these things? How can we expect a third grader, or I should say, shouldn't we expect a third grader to go, I don't know how to do algebra. I was helping my third grader with this problem, and they said, 3 times n equals 18. I'm like, that's algebra. You're putting a letter in for
an unknown, yes.
An unknown, and that's algebra. Isn't that algebra? And my wife's like, yeah, that's algebra. I'm like, she's in 3rd grade. I didn't mess with any of that stuff. Why are we just
does that mean
compacting?
Does that mean it was better for you because you started in 7th
grade? But I get the general sense. It's not fact, it's my opinion, a general sense that the way we are using our brains is declining when it comes to school, only because my mom has told me stories when she was in school. Like I was complaining when I was in school about using this graphing calculator, right? Trying to figure out graphs and stuff in math. And my mom would say, when I was in school, we had to understand every variable and we had to write it all out on paper. And it might have taken 4 pages of paper. But we understood exactly from A to Z how to figure out that problem. Now all you have to do is figure out the key sequence on your calculator, and you don't really truly understand how to graph that problem.
So when the calculator's gone,
we're screwed.
The question is asked of you, yeah.
So that's why I have this Debbie Downer feeling about schools, because when you generalize things...
That's a perfect opportunity for you to go into that teacher and that school district or that principal and say, so you're doing this. Tell me why this works.
Yeah,
Convince me why this works.
Right, and I have done that. Each year that my daughter went through school, and they're like, "Oh, we're going to do this. We're using a new style of mathematics." And I will my daughter just fucking wrapped my head around that style of mathematics.
Many teachers are also going, and what do you want us to do this year? And this is going to change next year. Right.
Well, and I'll say something.
That's where I'm getting my opinion from. When you were asking,
I've heard people say in my kids' schools of saying things like, "Well, when I was a kid, kindergarten was kind of like a fun thing." And I was like, "What do you mean?" Well, we went and we played with our friends and we learned how to socialize and did things, and we had lunch together and played blocks and learned our shapes and our colors. And now, if you don't know how to write your ABCs and know all the sounds to your letters, you're behind. Mm-hmm. And so I want to say, I can't remember, I think it was in college. I want to say it was some woman who said that, are we not surprised that we have so many social issues with students in school nowadays when from kindergarten, starting at kindergarten, pre-K and kindergarten, all we're focused on is what their academics are and not can they even get along with another kid, period.
Well, I was actually just, what you were saying had triggered something I had read or heard on the internet about
things in your head.
And it specifically had to do with Asian society.
Are you going to be racist now?
No.
Actually, they do quite well.
Because Rick has
kidding.
motivated me to try to find
kidding.
facts, and where did I find this? Which is a good thing. I'm not mocking you. I was trying to find it on here, but what I remember hearing is the early elementary grades in Asian schools focus more on it had to do more with how do you get along with each other for kids instead of ABCs and all these what you would think of an American like school type things like, hey, how do you spell and all that stuff. It was more along the lines of how do you resolve problems and would you do this? And I think one of the questions was something along the lines of how would you feel if you, or what would you be thinking if you hurt your classmate? And it had all these different responses from kids around the world. And like the American typical response was, I would try not to get caught. Right? And the Asian children's response was, why would I ever hurt my classmate? Because they're being at a very young age. Yes, education goes crazy, and they're very motivated to study and work hard in their cultures.
Competitive.
But at a very, very young age, they're trying to teach their kids more how to be a human being and care about the interactions between them.
Absolutely.
So while you guys continue talking, I'm going to try to find this.
That goes along with what you're saying.
That you guys oftentimes go is that the discussion just moves in this wonderful sinuous.
It goes back. It goes back to what you were saying before, though, is that this conversation goes back to the idea of thinking about someone outside of yourself. Am I doing this for myself? Or am I doing this for the whole? Am I getting along with people? What am I doing? Is what I'm doing day in and day out impacting everybody around me? Which I would think that feeds in right to what you're talking about.
We have to see the world as more than just our small little group. There are those.
My group is awesome, and
Like
you can't
you said.
change it at all. I'm just saying.
There you go. And I would bet that your group is always right.
Oh shit! You know it, buddy.
Don't.
I keep trying to bring up this conversation that I had at work the other day about emotions and all this stuff.
No, do that because it's a good point. Just do that.
While you're looking for that, go. Or did you find what you needed?
No, I haven't found what I needed yet.
I wasn't saying we must include emotion, but emotions are a necessary element, and knowledge, facts, the left side of the brain, right side of the brain, however that works, is also there. The logical side is to help us to keep from being too emotional, and the emotional side is allowing us to keep emotions out of the situation. And so they really are a team. I see them as, you're right, if you heavily are emotional and don't care about the facts and you're screaming and yelling,
pull a mic towards you.
No progress.
Thank you very much.
So there you go. If you can manage the two, then emotions are good, and the logic is good.
Right. And I tried to have that. I tried to get that across.
It's so hard
to my coworker the other day, and we were talking about Chris Kyle and American Sniper. And my wife went and saw it, and she actually said, "Hey,
I was thinking about going to see it because I heard so much about
it. Why don't you want to go see this movie? I know you like to go to the movie theater, and you want to go see a movie. Let's go see American Sniper." I said no. She was very shocked by this. She goes, "Why don't you want to go see American Sniper?" I said, I've heard good reviews about the movie, but I've also heard negative reviews about the movie, and I've also heard that the guy Chris Kyle, who wrote his book, put in his book that he went down to Katrina. You can see it on Washington Post here. Chris Kyle puts, let's see, that he went down
allegedly.
Allegedly, but Chris Kyle wrote this in his book, okay, that he went down to Katrina, or during Katrina, or right after Katrina, and he was sniping people. Him and a buddy went down and were killing people.
Who were looting.
No, he was shooting. That's what he put in his book.
He put in his book that he did this.
He wrote in his book that he was sniping people who were looting. Now,
This wasn't a phrase that was like I was watching the people out there and imagining I was sniping.
This was one of the biggest things.
He was hired by...
No.
Nope.
He said he just got a buddy.
On his own.
For instance, this is what he put. Like the one about how he and a buddy went down to New Orleans following Hurricane Katrina and picked off dozens of bad guys. Or the one in which he took on 2 armed Texans bent on stealing his truck and shot them both dead. There's reports that he made in his book, these claims of him being a badass. Mm-hmm. And there's no evidence to support that. Mm-hmm. There's nobody reporting, hey man, there's people shooting tons of civilians down in Katrina. There was none of that that would support his claim. So I just said, no, honey, how do I know what's bullshit and what's true? And I don't necessarily want to give money to that. Well, I kind of got in that same conversation with somebody at work, but I work with a lot of veterans, and any veteran really is. It seems like they're really emotionally tied into other veteran things.
Some veterans, because I have I have a trainer that I work with who saw American Sniper and thought that it was okay, and he's been in legitimate firefights through his 4 tours of Afghanistan and Iraq, and he's like, well, it was okay. I thought it was okay, but he thought that what was that tank movie from World War II? He thought that was
Glory
better.
or Fury.
Fury. He thought Fury was a hell of a lot better movie. But that was his opinion, and he was in firefights. So,
but when this guy that I work with, I said, "What are you going to do this week?" And he goes, "Oh, me and my son, we're going to go see American Sniper again. God damn, I love that movie. What an American hero. Have you seen it yet?" I go, "No." "What? You haven't seen it? You got to see it." No thanks. He goes, "Hold on a second. Why don't you just give me your fucking Patriot card? Give me your United States citizen card. Go ahead and give it to me. You're not a fucking patriot. How can you say that? How can you not go to that movie?" Fuck. And I said, listen, relax. I don't want to see it for these reasons. Okay?
Can I say something?
What?
I'm a little more laid back than you are.
Yeah, you're
I'm a little more liberal than you are. And I would fucking flip out if somebody talked to me like that. Well, it's so patronizing that it would really, really bother me. So I'm going to say kudos to you for holding yourself together. This
guy has one of those personalities that you love being around him. He's very funny, and when he says things to you, you can smile and then go, "Huh? I don't know if he really meant that to gouge me or what." But he's very patriotic. This guy, ex-Marine.
I gathered.
Right.
For me, you have to define patriotism for me to really be comfortable with what you're talking about, because I think there's a real false patriotism that would not fit into my definition of patriotism, that says, absolutely everything, no matter what, right or wrong, the United States is gung ho.
That's not patriotism.
That's not even democracy. We have to hold different opinions and be able to hold everyone accountable for
right. So I laid out, this. Hey, buddy, this is why I don't want to see it. And even after I laid out why I didn't want to see it, and this is where I got my information, he goes, "Oh, so everything on the internet's true? Everything on the internet's a fact?" I'm like, "No, I'm just saying this is where I saw it. This is where I've read it and heard about it on the internet." So I go, "Now listen, for a second, don't think about Chris Kyle and you being a Marine and him being a sniper. Don't think about all of that. How about this? Let's say Jeffrey Dahmer is still alive, and he's not in prison, and he writes a book saying that he raped little boys and then ate them. And then they made a movie about it, and then some of the proceeds from the movie might go to Jeffrey Dahmer's family. Would you go see the movie?" He goes, "Are you seriously comparing Jeffrey Dahmer to an American goddamn hero?" I said, listen, I don't want any of my money to go to somebody who claims that went down to Katrina, to the area of Katrina, and killed innocent people. I don't want to contribute money to him or his family. And I'm not going to buy his goddamn book because some of those proceeds are going to go to him or his family. And I know he's dead now, obviously. But I don't look at him as a hero. I look at him as somebody who had a skill, who was taught to shoot a target. And he's not a hero to me because he shot targets. He shot a piece of paper. If you can shoot a piece of paper or you can shoot a person, this guy was getting really upset with me. And I said, this is what I don't get by you or by people like you that get this emotional about people like Chris Kyle or situations like Chris Kyle.
The question would be, why does it become emotional?
Well, yeah, he's getting really upset, but I said...
But he connects himself personally with Chris Kyle. In other words, Chris Kyle is...
an extension
family.
of himself.
Chris Kyle is someone who is like me, and you're basically saying, you think you can't support me.
Could be. But I look at it as, here's a guy you don't know who can shoot a target. And here's me, who you've known for 6 years, and we're really good friends. And because I say I don't want to give money to this guy's family or watch that movie or say he's my hero, you're willing to ditch my friendship?
It goes against your logic.
Yeah, it does.
Did you say that to him, though?
Yeah.
If you use the logic, the only thing I can suggest is that you take the opportunity to, knowing where he's coming from, to be a listener. If you want to carry on the conversation, be a listener and continue to ask questions. Just listen. You know where the argument would go. If you started that discussion again, you know exactly where it would end.
Right. And we did leave it kind of civilly, like, you know what, let's just not, we won't continue this.
Let's agree to disagree.
But it is,
that kind of annoys me too. Let's agree to disagree.
Why?
It is very black and white, and some people see things very either you are or you aren't.
It's only black and white if you believe that way. Because I think that you can say that. I think you can find a lot of disagreements or a lot of arguments where you say, well, listen, I mean, I can see this guy's point of view. If you believe in the military and if you believe in what we do to train our military personnel, he was the greatest sniper that ever walked the face of the earth at this point.
He has the most confirmed kills in history.
Period. Yeah, period.
That's a fact.
So, it's a fact. So, I can be, for lack of a better term, excited about that fact. If that's what is important to me, then that's super important to me. And so, that you confirm that, there's no fictional thing going on. It's it's evident that I can do that, and I believe in this guy because of that. And so you can say, like, you know what? Good on you. Yeah, he is the greatest sniper that's ever walked the face of the earth. I can disagree with the idea that should he really have been doing that period? I don't know about that. I mean, you can have it. I mean, you don't think there's a civil medium in there somewhere at all?
Yeah,
or is it just too tough?
Sure. I mean, I had a civil conversation with my wife about it because she really wanted to go see it, and I really didn't. And she wasn't as extreme,
really,
at all as this guy.
She's a Marine. Come on.
But my last little comment to her was, so do you think you'd ask your friend to go with you? I go, I'm not going to go. Do you want to ask somebody to go with you? She's like, oh, I don't know. I go, well, how about your friend who's Muslim? Do you think you would you feel like, hey, you know what? I want to hang out with my girlfriend. We're just going to go to a movie. Would you invite her? Or would you think, I really don't think she would enjoy that? Because if you think that she really wouldn't enjoy that, why? Let's think about it a little bit deeper. Why do you think that she probably wouldn't enjoy that?
I think she should go and give her perspective on it.
Who?
Her friend who's Muslim.
Well, I mean, I'm just saying, if you have pause, if you're like,
right,
I'm probably not going to call up my mom and go, hey, Mom, I'm going to go watch a porno. You want to come?
You don't think that's totally different than that?
I'm just saying, if it gives you pause,
if
maybe
it's
you
offensive, should. You think it might be offensive to that person? Sure.
Maybe you should think about more. I'm not saying a porno is horrible. I'm just saying I'm not going to watch it with my mom, and I'd be like,
Oof. Should you do it at all, though? I mean, you and I have talked today. We had a gentleman who's going to be on the podcast who says, I probably won't do Cards Against Humanity.
Because if I had to read a card
it's
that's
very
racist,
you know, he's an African American individual, and he said that, well, that's super racist and super over the top. I'm probably not going to play that. Well, that makes total sense to me. I am not going to play that game, and he has every right to say that. So, in other words, it's a horrible movie. I'm not going to go watch it. You know, I mean,
but then there's always the argument, well, you never saw it, so you can't really make a judgment.
Right, and that's what the guy that I work with said. He goes, so you're saying that in his book he wrote this? I go, that's what I've read. He goes, so you haven't bought the book to read it? I go, well, why would I buy the book? If I buy the book, then I'm contributing to that legacy, and I don't want to contribute to the legacy. He goes, well, you don't know until you read the book.
There is some.
Why don't you buy the book and then highlight in the book where it says that, and then maybe I'll believe you.
There is for me personally.
You do the work for me, and then I'll be okay with it.
What's that?
You do the work for me, then maybe I'll believe it.
There you
because
go.
I know he wouldn't necessarily maybe want to go looking, because it would, if it confounded his present
Possibly
belief.
crack
If somebody
that
came-
foundation.
But
If somebody came to me and said, do me a huge favor, I would love for you to read the book and go to the movie, and then we can talk about it. That, to me, sounds legitimate. I would be like, you know what? I haven't read the book. I haven't seen the movie. You know what? You're being open enough to me to say, hey, listen, I disagree with what you're saying about this, but you see the movie, you read the book, and we can talk about it. And then there is some legitimacy to me for that. If you haven't read the book and you haven't seen the movie, how can you have a comment on it? You really are only...
if you don't want to support it, there are ways for you to get all the information you would like without doing that, such as borrowing the book from somebody who already has it.
There you go.
You know?
Yeah.
And maybe reading some reviews of it. There have obviously been some lengthy reviews of it, pro and con.
Oh, tons.
That would give you some information
tons.
to share. If you say, I just don't want to support the director and whatever with the whole...
No, I think that nowadays, it seems like, and whether it's right or wrong, you have to have some... Your argument has to have some kind of legitimacy in the sense of, you know what, yeah, I'll borrow my buddy's book and I'll read it. And then, you know what, you and I can talk about the book. Did you read the book, or did you just see the movie? Because I guarantee you that guy fucking just saw the movie. And so if you said,
well, I don't know.
You know what,
he did.
good on you. I agree with what you're saying. You know what, I'm going to read the book the next couple of weeks, and then you and I can talk about this more.
Now, I am a person who can say I'm wrong. I have no problem with saying I'm a dumbass
You're so fucking
or that
weak.
I fucked up.
You're so weak.
In fact, the other
Don't admit
day,
you're
as an
wrong.
example, just the other day, I had in a podcast that we had talked about the fact that people have made being tactical really sexy. Everybody wants to dress tactically, and there's backpacks that are tactical, and you got to wear a hat that's tactical. You know, you think of SWAT. You think of a SWAT team or SEAL Team 6, and there's a lot of just regular clothing that are come out, and backpacks and hats and watches and things that they're promoted as tactical, sexy, type of a thing. Well, we were making fun of it on the podcast, and the other day I'm going into work and
somebody who listens to your podcast,
yes,
sees your podcast.
One of the guys,
you're wrong because nobody listens to this.
One
podcast.
of the guys that gives me good feedback all the time. I locked eyes with him, and he was shaking his head and just laughing as I was walking towards him. I go, what's so funny? He goes, as I saw you and your backpack coming towards me, I noticed just how tactical your backpack was. And he goes, and I had just watched your podcast about how ridiculous you think, why does everybody have to be tactical and everything has to be tactical? I go, all right, amen, brother, you got me. Hypocrite. I made a purchase because...
Oh, that could be a whole nother part of the argument. Is that?
But again, that has to do more with my job than just wanting to walk around.
And he's talking about climate change.
Yeah,
you can say, "Oh God, I was really wrong." There could be a 5% chance that what I do on a daily basis has an impact on the environment around me and my kids' environment and my kids' environment. Okay. So why can I not step back and say, wait a second, what can I do differently? Mm-hmm. I mean, that's the hard part, is that you're tapping into the human way of being, humble.
And I can be even more humble, I think, but that's one of those things that is almost being ebbed out of our social norm, is being able to say, you know what, I was wrong. I'm sorry. You're not going to see that on Orange County Housewives. Hey, boo, I'm sorry. I was wrong.
But it's never lost from the conversation if you don't let it be lost from your conversations. In other words, though it may be lost in some respects, every time you bring it back, it's not gone. So it gets back to, it's everybody's responsibility to figure out what's most important to them and act on it as best they can and be as informed as they can. And even as a teacher, I know there are some things that are much more important to know than not know. It was made really evident to me 2008 when we had the big flood here in Cedar Rapids. I was teaching at Metro, the alternative high school, and a bunch of kids came to me and said, we realize now that if there were a larger catastrophe, we would have no idea what to do. We don't know where we'd get our electricity. We don't know where we'd get our food. We don't know how to desalinize the water if it's salty or damaged. We don't know anything, and we realize we're at risk. Could we get a class that gave us a chance to look at some of those things? And luckily I had a principal who said, yes, you can create a elective class if you'd like and offer it for a semester or two. And the kids wanted to look into indigenous cultures that, when crises came, are much more able to function and recover because they already work with the earth. They already do what's necessary to survive, as well as other skills that we've lost. We put up structures such as a teepee. We used solar ovens, which don't require cooking and using whatever wood you can't find if you're in a catastrophe. We tanned hides to understand how leather was made. Most of the kids said that's it. They're never going to.
Where do you get the hides from?
Leather. Local hunters who had made those available. I'm vegan. I'm a vegetarian. Not at all something of interest to me, but I knew those hides were available, and so we used that. Very few of the kids in the class had even considered diet changes. But they recognized when it was evident to them, the flood water was coming up the street, that there was a real disconnect in their training, their education, right? So, what's my point here?
You'll get there.
If they recognize that and are willing to take action to get that information, they see that as more important than maybe watching TV tonight, or it becomes more pertinent. And it's likely that none of the great population of us in the world are going to do anything until we see those waters rising.
Yeah.
We see threats. If you drive down the street and your car puffs out its fuel out the back, you see it for a minute and then it dissipates and it's gone magically. It's within the air that you can still breathe. You can still see the clouds. The birds fly by. It doesn't seem to be a problem.
Right.
And until it smacks you in the face, if you live on an island where you walk,
and I would even
2
say
months
that
of the year in a foot of water,
right.
I would even say that any kid or any adult that I could watch I could see myself. I'm trying to be not to be an asshole, a cynical asshole.
Yeah,
I could see myself. I'm working hard, but it's not working. I could see that water coming right up to my doorstep, going, "Oh, don't worry about it. I'm not worried." Yeah, that's okay. Until it's flooding into my basement and I'm fucking screwed. Well, I start taking action. I can see people being like that because I see that myself.
Right. Here's an example.
If you believe it will pass by, if it will be gone in a while, we can make those judgments. But I do believe that these will not be passing by and will be visited more regularly and in more catastrophic ways than just the waters rising.
whenever I watch preppers, whenever I complain about taxes,
There's a prepper in all of us, I think,
Yes.
somewhere.
whenever I kind of complain about government stuff in general, my wife will be like, "Oh God, are we going to start with the mason jars again? Are we going to start with that?" And I'll say, I know you don't want to do anything until it affects us, but let's for a second look at the people who have been affected, because it's real easy to have a blind eye.
Sure.
To turn a blind eye to some people. But if you look at all the different tent cities around the United States, there's a ton, there's thousands of American citizens who've been thrown out of their homes because of the financial collapse of 2008 and all the bullshit loans that were given out by the bankers and going, "Oh no, we're going to give you a balloon loan. There's no way you can afford it in 5 years. But we're going to give you this." And then all these people are evicted. There's all of these empty homes that are doing nobody any good. But there's tents, there's people, there's normal. I go, what would happen to us? So we shouldn't care about anything that's going on with anybody else until you and I lose our home. Mm-hmm. What would happen if you and I and our 3 kids had to live in a tent city because we said okay to a mortgage lender that did not have our best interests at heart, and we just got thrown out on our ear?
Again, that's a situation whereby you can blame the bankers because they were working hard not to reveal all the information. But at the same time, we have to assume some responsibility for walking into it wanting the American dream and not getting enough information to make a wise decision. So I'm not cutting anybody slack.
Right, but I mean also our empathy for those people that are in those situations.
Yeah, how do you expand your vision of what family is to be more people than just your immediate?
Oh,
children?
good point.
And we're working on a project in Anamosa. Presently, it's called Envision Your Anamosa. But there are a number of us working in other categories and areas saying, well, do we know how many people are indigent in our community that don't have enough money to get through the month? Do we know how many people are having to supplement their work? Supplement their time with their kids by trying to make a little more money on the side just to get through the day. Is there anything that we as a community can do to support them? Initially, to keep them relatively healthy, community garden that's available to people. And then how do we move them, help move them towards more resilience and self-sustainability? I do think that many people are not wanting to look at the future because it will be less power than we presently have. We will not have the unlimited supply of gasoline, which produces this phenomenal amount of workforce
Sure.
in a small gallon of gas. I mean, we are spoiled. We've lived in this one small little period of time where we could suddenly harness 27 humans into one small gallon and produce work that is, we have fossil slaves, I guess you could call them. We've never lived in a time like that, and nobody is prepared for when it ends. Most people have been born into the situation where it's always been like that. No, it hasn't. But actually, it only started 100 years ago. But we don't experience that. This is reality for us.
But you haven't been. I mean, would you say your philosophy and your point of view? I know you're from the '60s.
Yes.
Would you feel like you're? And that's not to
You
assume,
say it like it's a
no.
like
I know.
planet.
Not to assume anything.
Proud to have
It
grown up in the
is from
60s.
another planet. Absolutely. Would you feel like your perspective has changed at all over the years, or has your focus always been kind of on the environmental kind of aspect of things?
I would say it's always been in the back of my mind, but I live in this culture as well. I listen to the endless ads in the paper encouraging me to buy things, and it's only through sort of some rigorous effort on my part when I go to the store and if I'm just getting something, I go, well, that's fascinating, I could get that, and I do a step thing and go, do I really need that? Is there something I could do at home that I could still pull that off and it wouldn't require me getting some other thing? And usually, I would say 90% of the time, it's like, no, I don't need that. I just don't need that.
Do you think it's unreasonable? Do you think it's unreasonable for us to say, I got 5 kids. I go to Hy-Vee, and I can find this thing for this amount and this thing, and that's it. That's the best I can do.
By the way, thanks for
I got-
contributing to the overpopulation of the earth.
Why? Why is that?
I got five kids. Thanks for
Bitch,
contributing.
I got 5 kids. You've been
I
birthing,
got 19 in counting.
birthing all them babies? Do you, I mean, and again, I agree with your point of view. I'm trying to be a devil's advocate for some reason today. I don't know what that is.
That's always good.
I got 5 kids. I walk into Hy-Vee and somebody says, "Oh, this is this much, and this is on sale. This is on sale." I'm like, "Oh, awesome! I can do this for another week and get by." You know, oh, you know what? If I buy these things, I get this extra money off my gas from my car. Sweet, fuel saver. I'm all about it. I think it's hard for our perspective to be that we can step back and say, like you're saying, you know, and I think that's why I asked you earlier, just a second ago, about, you know, has it always been this kind of perspective for you? Because I think in the moment, you said you're retired, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And
2 years now.
You have grandkids and all those great things, which is wonderful. But you can walk into Hy-Vee by yourself and you can say, "Oh, well, do I need this or do I not need this?" Or are you a 25, 20, 30-year-old mother who's got 2 or 3 kids?
Mom, I want this.
You're just no, not even that part. You're just barely making it by. So fuck
okay.
that.
All right.
Some whiny little kid asking for that, he's not getting that because I can't afford it. Period. So then I'm shopping for the least, the most expensive thing I can find.
Yeah.
If you're talking about food, that's another thing. I'm talking
Yes,
about,
food. I'm talking about food.
Okay, and I'm talking about things that are unnecessary. I think foods are essential, to get good food.
Right.
Organic, non-GMO food. Tough to find in Iowa.
It's okay. You can plug it away, man.
Do what you got to do.
Because for me, it's taken a good 25 years to reach that. It's a slow progression. It's a sort of change in mind think. And you're right. I agree with you. It is a huge shift to say, I no longer will be able to drive 1,200 miles in a day and a half, if I so choose, because I can. Because I have the fuel that powers my vehicle, and I can afford to buy it. So I can do that, and I can buy anything I want if I have the money for it.
But
anything.
But think about this.
What he's saying is,
you're saying is, think about this, that the people, when gas bottomed out a little, 4 weeks ago?
A few weeks ago. SUV sales.
Trucks and SUVs fucking shot through the roof. Like, finally, I can drive that fucking gas guzzler.
Or you can afford the gas guzzler.
No, I want to say that. Do you feel like all your dreams and aspirations are for nothing? Within a 1 to 2 month period,
I was actually
gas
thinking,
changed so much that people literally, and again, I'm being a complete asshole right now.
Stop saying it.
You're just being contrary.
No. People are. I'm just saying that I know people who said like, "Fuck that! I am buying the biggest truck I can because gas right now." Without being an ignorant person, they're not a dumb person. They know that gas is going to go back up again. They said that because gas is so low right now, I'm going to buy something else.
But obviously that's a sort of short-sighted decision.
But it's not uncommon,
which is not necessarily informed. If you took the time to move farther, we've never ever been trained to say this is something that's happening. What's its effect? We've never or rarely looked at the effects. Now, people have always looked at the effects and been sort of seen as the strange people who are out there going, "Oh no, this may not be very good for us."
Right.
Even when fuel was developed, Henry Ford said, "I hope don't wait too long before we deal with the fuel thing and move on to electric and solar, because that's really."
Don't you think that? But that to me is an ignorant statement by him. Because the first cars in America were electric.
Yeah, sure.
He took the idea of a combustion engine and made it something that it was. Was that because the electric engine was not as feasible as a combustion engine?
Then it wasn't, yeah.
Because there's a building in Cedar Rapids that was an electric car building back in the early 1900s.
Yeah.
So, I mean, at what point I mean that's my fault for assuming that somebody is intrinsically going to be going towards the fucking worst thing they can fucking do. But I mean, so if Henry Ford knew that an electric car,
Thomas Edison as well,
in the long run, was the best thing that you could possibly do, why didn't they do it from the very beginning? They were still going to make money. I mean, the idea of a assembly line is revolutionized by Henry Ford. I mean, that's what they teach in the schools. So, I mean, if electric cars were the first cars, besides steam was first, then electric. Why did he take the idea of electric and say, I'm going to mass produce electric cars? Unless, without any, I mean, I'm not trying to be a conspiracy person. It's so fucking dumb. Somebody said, hey, if you do a combustion engine, gasoline and oil, we can do these things together, and it works out perfectly. And not in any kind of horrible, I'm going to be a bad person kind of thing. It's going to pollute the environment or whatever. But I mean, if electric vehicles were the key to things, maybe they didn't know better at the time. But I feel like we have to, at some point, step back and say, if the assembly line and combustion engines were the key to how this whole thing got started, because that's what has driven everything from this point out.
Certainly in the use of fossil fuels.
Yes, absolutely. Because I mean, it wasn't until the
coal was first, though. We were burning coal back in.
But you can't. But you can burn coal in locomotives, but you can't burn coal in cars.
No.
I think that
they do. In some countries, they actually have coal burning.
Really?
And there was an electric.
Holy cow.
There was an electric car way back in the day, the electric buggy.
Yeah,
we're talking about
talking about that.
Yeah, here in Cedar Rapids, there is.
Okay, but did anybody say that it didn't take off because it was too magical?
Well, it had limited capacity because batteries.
It was limited.
Weren't what they are now.
But think about this: if somebody said,
"How much have you had to drink?"
It's not limited. It's limited because we can't go so far. At some point, somebody said, "Well, you know what? The combustion engine and oil and gasoline is limited. So let's really focus and figure out how we can make the combustion engine work better to at least get a little bit better gas mileage." If we take the same philosophy
I
towards
thought you were
electric,
going down a certain road. I thought you were saying, the combustion engine has a limit, so maybe we should focus on the electric engine. I thought that was the route you were going to go.
The electric engine had a limit, but when gas was first coming out of the ground, gas was 5 cents a gallon of gas. Do you realize, you could drive across, if the gas was available, you could drive across the United States for like $25.
right?
I mean, conceivably, although that was a lot of money then. It was financially feasible.
So the Illuminati helped get rid of Tesla.
Hey,
and
man,
Tesla, in his way of doing electricity.
I know you're mocking
the
this,
Illuminati and
Tesla. If Tesla,
Edison, and they corresponded on the fifth parallel.
I'm always surprised by is that more people don't, still to this day, don't understand the import of Tesla.
The importance?
Or I can say the import of Tesla.
If you're importing a good from another country and exporting to another country?
Whatever. How important Tesla was and is to every single thing that we use today.
But many people are back. Many researchers are going back and going, let's look at Tesla stuff and see what we can pull out of it. There's a lot of groups doing that. You just don't hear about it. That's not big news, right?
Right.
But Tesla did have some pretty impressive stuff. But again, it's a financial thing. And if you let finances rule the decisions without some forward thinking, then you're always going to get yourself in trouble.
But it goes back.
Edison purposely worked at getting
He
Tesla.
Derailed him.
Fuck
Not
yeah,
only
he did.
derailed him, he electrocuted a living, gigantic elephant.
Yeah,
Which became
and people
the
were.
element.
It's a horrible video. I hate that video.
This is what alternating current can do.
And this is what it can do. Of course, his would do the same thing if
Right.
you ran it through. But scare tactics. So none of that is new.
So you never hear anybody on the media going,
greed has always been out
Edison's
there.
a dick.
Greed has always been. Yeah, exactly.
He invented the light bulb, goddammit.
No, actually, the one thing is the guy who came up with the filament. And if I'm accurate, and of course I love African
Where'd you get
American
this
history.
information, right?
Yeah, exactly. I'm trying to remember where I did. It was a guy who was working within his group because he had lots of guys employed doing it. Was a young African American inventor who came up with the filament that actually finally worked in the Electric incandescent.
You know,
but do we know who that guy is?
No.
Do we know who Major Taylor is? World class, national, world champion, cycling champion for 8 years in a row.
He was on a poster I saw recently.
Really? Finally?
But the hard part is there's so many. Think about that.
You showed me, right?
No, it wasn't a postcard.
No, poster, I said.
Oh, poster in
Poster.
Metro High School.
Yeah,
sure.
you showed me that.
Major Taylor, absolutely.
Well, Vivian Thomas helped
Who?
do Vivian Thomas. He's an African American. He was an assistant to Alfred. I think it's Balick, who pioneered modern heart surgery for infants. Was an African American.
Are you all right?
I'm sorry. Yeah, I was a little verklempt. I'm sorry.
You're so upset.
Sorry, I'm so upset by this discrepancy. You see African Americans and Tesla. It's just too much for my brain to handle. Anyways, Vivian Thomas, he was a partner with Alfred Balick, and he revolutionized infant heart surgeries. Mm-hmm. And he finally got his portrait in the Mayo Clinic on the wall because, luckily Alfred Balick said,
couldn't have done it without him.
I couldn't have done it without him. So you talk about that and you say something about, we think it's, dumb, some fucking filament, or you try to think about how many things that go on and somebody says, oh, it was this little guy that gave this one little teeny thing and it didn't really change too much, but this thing happened. And it makes you go, oh, fuck.
Now,
how much of it is we're all part of a communicative kind of community that are trying to make things happen. And all it would take for me to go, you know what? I was working really fucking hard on this heart surgery, and this guy stepped in, helped me out. Together we did this. And Thomas Edison says, I was trying to make this one thing happen, and I couldn't get there. This one guy stepped in. I was like, fuck, together we did this. And it would make you realize that it's a cumulative.
Commutative.
We're all going to struggle with that.
Commutative activity. We're all part of.
It's a collaboration. Goddamn.
It's a collaboration. That's great.
It's a collaboration. I'm just going to go with a completely different word.
Collaborating together to make things possible. It's never one person doing one thing. And that goes back to the American dream you talked about. It's never one guy. George Washington crossed the Potomac by himself. Somebody is rowing the fucking boat to get there.
And somebody's on the line fighting as he directs them to make it happen as well.
But again, we've belittled the fact that Edison couldn't get it done. We're belittling how awesome. I mean, we should have months instead of like a day, like President's Day. There should be months of celebration for Tesla, because Edison, like we were just talking about, other people helped him create this one thing, this light bulb. Right. So Tesla gets the contract to light the World Fair
in Chicago.
Right? It's going to be the first World Fair ever to be lit.
Yeah.
Edison finds out about it and goes, "Fuck you, buddy! I'm going to patent my light bulb with the screw, and you got to recreate an entire new thing. You can't use my light bulb." So Edison, within 6 months, by himself, reinvents the light bulb, and that is the fluorescent light bulb
that we have for 200 years
with the two prongs. 200 years. What are you talking about?
Yeah, it's been about 150.
I'm sorry, I'm off 50 years, you asshole.
But he reinvented.
Everything.
He used mercury. He uses gas instead of a filament. I mean, the idea that one person, a guy that comes over here from another land, he's digging ditches, he's just hoping for his break, and he reinvents a fucking light bulb in 6 months. This thing that we've never had, unless, of course, you prescribe to that way of thinking that the Egyptians had light bulbs back in the day with their hieroglyphs, and you want to go down that road. But anyway,
no, but the idea though is
he did
that
in 6 months.
I'm confused a little bit. Tesla was the one, because I know Tesla worked for a short time for Edison.
Yes, he did work for Edison, and Edison, and when he told Edison, "Hey, I got this thing for the World Fair," Edison shit canned him.
Oh,
Yeah, and he had to reinvent
If you
the
could
light
share
bulb.
with me that information.
I'm
I will.
totally
I will
concerned.
share with you that information.
So
What?
are you saying Edison's like amazing, crazy, awesome because he reinvented all these things? I'm totally
I think
with
he was
him on
being-
this.
I think
I
he was
don't know.
being sarcastic.
Oh, were you being sarcastic?
Yeah.
I'm telling you,
the Tesla
reinvented
deserves-
the idea of the light bulb within
Oh.
6 months because
I'm
Edison.
I'm sorry. I thought the opposite.
I'm sorry.
I thought you were
Tesla-
saying Edison did all these
Edison-
things.
Edison
Viewers
was-
will be confused as
yeah,
well, you guys.
I'm
Oh,
sorry.
you poor
I'm sorry.
not
bastards.
with you.
If you're listening to this, rewind and go through one more time for
All right,
us.
real quick. Edison hired Tesla. Tesla came over here, worked for Edison. Edison, for whatever reason, I believe it was because Tesla pissed him off because he was like, hey, I have all these great ideas. And Edison fired him, right? Tesla gets the contract to light the first World's Fair. It's going to be the first
1864. Absolutely.
the first World Fair, right?
Yeah.
Edison gets ticked off
64, really?
and patents just the mechanism that screws in the light bulb. He patents just that, right? And that's enough for Tesla to have to reinvent the light bulb. Otherwise, he can't use the light bulbs to use his alternating current to light the World's Fair. So he has to reinvent the light bulb, and he creates the fluorescent light bulb that uses mercury gas. Within 6 months, he does that. So to me, it's this guy who contributed to the radio, fluorescent light bulbs, the way that we look at
Everything. Everything.
But now you're getting back to how information is gathered and how information is disseminated.
True.
You know, and I remember as a kid when African American studies back to African American history, when African American studies began to be requested by those of our generation in the early 60s because it was missing from our history books. When you looked back and saw, wait a minute, where did our history books come from? Well, they were published by a couple of large companies. And who were the historians that wrote the history books that then we had that seemed to be missing a lot of American history? 2 or 3 of the guys who were the writers of the history were professors, but if you go back in their history, they were Southern generals in the Civil War who very much believed in
slavery.
the slave system, who then
Or segregation at that point.
you know, out of their vision, which of course was lacking in that area, created history books that somehow removed a portion of the population from being even discussed, unless you give Washington Carver, because he invented the peanut. He was a brilliant, he was one of hundreds of inventors from the African American community. And it's only after a long period of recovery do we get sort of an accurate view of history, and even that probably could be improved. But it's, again, where do you get your information from? Who's providing you with the information? Do you need to go deeper to get really some? Or can you ask questions that aren't being asked yet to get answers to things that will definitely serve you in the future?
I think it's an incredible contradiction that Americans in particular, we are not willing to, well, sometimes, we're willing to recognize how bad slavery is, but we're not willing to recognize the African Americans that have been part of our history that have impacted us to this point.
I'm always surprised when I go to the African American Museum here in Cedar Rapids with my kids for their field trips. I'm always surprised at something that I watch and I go, I didn't realize that's who invented that. I never realized that's where we got this or that or the other thing. And why do we have football shields or face masks on our football helmets? Oh, it's because of this one African American football player that played football at Drake who was brutalized. And they're like, we have to protect players better, and we can't do that with no face mask at all. So he was the driving force behind that, which I've said before. But it's all little things that I've always been surprised at when I go back to the museum to learn, because it just doesn't seem like it's in the.
Well,
in
it
our
makes you
culture.
realize that we need to make sure we do a better job of that.
But there's a horrible opportunity for information glut, which I think is on the internet. Useful information and not so useful information. And you basically, as a teacher and as a person who wants to disseminate the most useful information, you have to make decisions about what that should be. That's why the groups are pulled together to decide what's going to be the curriculum for a school, what's the most important stuff. Let's say food growing is really important that we should all know how to do. Is it part of the curriculum? Well, some places maybe, but is it integral to what they're doing? Not always, because they assume that the culture itself, which has established itself as it is, that food will be provided, whether we ship it hundreds of thousands of miles. That's already in place, so we don't need to learn that until the need comes when we do have to know it again. And then suddenly it's, scramble to recover what's been lost. So there should be sort of a basic, these are sort of essential things to know.
Yeah.
How to get water, how to get food, how to build a home, how to raise a family, how to exist happily despite what you have. We're just a kind of a spoiled culture. We live like medieval kings and princesses.
Well, I tell you what,
I couldn't imagine if I grew up in a city, I would be fucking scared. Luckily,
if shit hit the fan and
luckily,
things fall apart?
luckily, I grew up in a
Teepee?
in a family. I grew up in a family. No, I didn't grow up in a teepee. That if shit hit the fan, I would say
Fant?
Sorry,
Fant?
fan. I know where I would go, and I know what I would do. And I'm not talking about a bug out bag.
we've already talked about it.
I'm not talking about a bunker somewhere. I would know what I would do if things went south.
But you would get away from the mass populace.
Yes, I would. But you know what? I choose to live in the Midwest because of that, though.
Yeah.
So that's part
before
of
we
it.
get away from this, and
go back to it.
we're going to bring things to a close here in a little bit.
Why? It's only been 3
Do people
hours.
really listen all this period of time to it, or you condense it?
Well,
Fuck yeah, they
we'll
do.
condense a little bit of it. We'll take out we'll edit a few smart things. We'll take a few things out, but then we try to put like a timeline in the comments.
Okay.
Like we talk about this subject at this, so people can go forward and backward, whatever. One of the things.
Let's get back to something. What was that you were talking about?
Oh well, yesterday when I saw you at Metro, I was surprised and I really enjoyed your answer to this. You said, as a teacher, this struck me as something good, because I look at modern day teachers as quick to say, drug them, they're out of control, drug them, they need drugs. Where's their prescription? Where's their ADHD? I know not every teacher does that, and I don't want to paint with a broad brush, but I've kind of got the feeling that that's an easy answer to throw out. And
It's a cultural answer.
And your comment yesterday was, I like wild kids. I wish kids, in a sense, were wilder.
Well, and you'd have to define wilder, but I'm just saying energetic. It's really not natural for us to sit in chairs as small children and young people in chairs for hours all day long. I kind of feel it's unnatural. So I can embrace the kid that's uncomfortable in that situation and who wants to be active. And yes, the strongest, most effective drug that you can do for someone who has ADHD, distraction, has issues with distraction, is to take a break, go outside, and get 5 minutes of physical activity, sort of do something. Now, that doesn't mean the medication doesn't work and isn't effective and isn't necessary at times. But when the physical action, which is free, is available to you, and it could be built into the school system to allow these kids to have a regular opportunity to release some of their energy, expend it, which is what they want to do anyway. Or you can take drugs that will cost you $2,000 a year to make things happen. I think
And
that's
unknown
that's
side
indicative
effects.
of our hospital culture and our drug culture, and it's unfortunately driven by money. And yes, if we get to the whole, is everything relating to greed? Only because we've accentuated that. Is that natural? Is that essential? I find many people who do not see greed as the element that pushes them through their life. To have more, to get more, to do more. I don't think it's a natural thing. I think that people have argued that it's part of human nature. I would disagree. However, we've done the best at expressing what's possible when greed does run our operation, our motivations.
Yeah, we have a great
our
example of that
decisions.
now, don't we?
We've really blown that. I mean, taken it to its extreme.
Well,
which is why people are recovering and going, well, wait, maybe that's not the good thing.
Well, and I think about parents of my kids' friends who spend every single weekend somewhere else in the state doing something. Softball, baseball, football, wrestling, basketball. All they do is they do other things other than, I don't know, go walk in the woods. I mean, whatever, choose your poison. But I mean,
Go to a park?
I think that I start thinking about being, I always try to relate to myself, have a beer, relax, have somebody not ask me for something or demand something from me, and enjoy the last 3 or 4 hours of my day before I go to sleep. Now, I'm a parent, and so I'm going to be like, help kids with homework and have positive, hopefully, interactions. And then you're asking me for one more thing. And I can't help but, I mean, trust me, I understand completely what you're talking about, and I appreciate it very much. And I think of, you're asking me to do one more goddamn thing that I have done Monday through Friday, and I hope that Saturday at some point I can fucking relax. And then Sunday, I'm going to really relax because I have nothing going on. Football, the Niners aren't playing. And then Monday, I'm back to it again. And so I think it really comes down to the human aspect of selfishness. I can extrude my kids from that. I can say, you know what? Just forget all those guys. Junior.
Yeah?
He's on his own doing his own thing. You know what I did for me? You know what I did for me?
No, what?
It freed up time out of my brain. Okay? He is doing his own thing. He's happy. He's doing great. And I can fucking forget about it for a little while. You saw that movie Parenthood with Steve Martin?
Oh, yeah.
Your kids never hit the end zone. They never have a touchdown. No. My kid's off doing his own thing. He's happy. He's collected. He's doing his own stuff. I'm good. Now I can free up time in my brain to do my own thing.
For other stuff?
And it could be stupid, superficial shit. I'm just saying that it allows me to just like take a breath from what society demands of me. And it could be, but it's not illegitimate to say I'm not concerned about the environment or my kids' are going to have.
Yeah.
But I feel like our society, our media is a big thing, that you have certain demands on you all the time. Are you doing this? Well, if you're not doing this, you're not doing this.
You're a bad person.
You're a bad person. You throw in Kim Kardashian's ass in the middle of that.
I didn't.
And
You just did.
I know. And it's one more distraction because you know what? I must have had like 10 things on my Facebook, Twitter, and something else that was talking about it. And I could choose not to see what they were talking about. Or I could be like, I'm being bombarded. What the fuck is everybody talking about? And I can click on it and go, oh, that's fucking horrible. Great. Go to something else. But I still stopped and looked at what it was.
Yeah. Just listening to you right now, I almost...
Feel sad for me?
Tears come to your eyes? What?
I almost feel like, oh my God, dude, are you that? You are just overwhelmed. You know what I really like? I'm gonna say something positive.
Sweet. I
You know
can
what
use
really
it.
like? I really like having conversations about things that, 1, bother us, 2, that we need to be concerned about, and 3, give us ideas or angles or solutions that we could possibly interject into our lives. And it's a lot like going to the gym. It's a lot more important than that, but it's a lot like going to the gym. When people say, you know what, you're kind of a fat fuck. Maybe you need to go to a gym. All right, not everybody would say that. I have said that to Todd as a joke. But when people say, I don't have time to go to the gym, I have to watch Friends and I got to watch Seinfeld. Again, I'm dating myself. Really, what you're saying is,
done.
really what you're doing is you're recognizing the things that you should have no problem giving up so that you can place what you need to be doing in that time slot.
If it was that easy, it'd be easy to give up. You and I think this now. We think that
It's an addiction.
giving up a friend.
These things are they're really no different than a chemical addiction to a drug.
I would give up friends in 2 seconds if it meant that somehow my ability to impact climate change would have. Absolutely. Oh, absolutely.
Or is there a way to work into your regular, everyday life of whatever it is you do and
Bring it,
time
Rick.
with your children to make that an element that's a natural
Very
part?
natural.
You know, because right now, basically, we're all have embraced the culture that we live in, which has its good parts and its bad parts. But one of them is to dominate your time and to distract you so that when you are at work or whether you are spending time with your kids, you're saying, I wish I had time for myself. Which means, in truth, the time that you spend doing the job that you love, if you have a job that you love, you're also part of you going, geez, I wish I had less time doing this and a little more time to do what I need to renew myself. And so people are saying, so I'm glad to have some time away from my children, though I love spending time with my children. I'm glad to have time away from my work because I do need to renew. My question would be, how could you learn to renew and still include those people in your experience that you value most, that you want to do the most? And I think if you give it some energy, you'll discover that solution. The problem is, can you take the time in your busy day
So
to
if
go,
you-
wait a minute, I want to rethink it all.
It's not work if you love what you do. Kind of one of those things, right?
Yeah.
I was telling Matt that I love Outside Magazine.
Yeah, so
And-
do I. One of my best friends gave that to me.
You're welcome. And so it's they had like the 100 top jobs in America. I forget what it was, but I want to say like half of the top 20 were in Colorado, and it wasn't like anything like you would think, like, you know, pop brownies on Friday. It was more of like once a week they did a group bike ride through the mountains, or once a month you had a free ski trip to go wherever you wanted to go and go skiing in Colorado. It was like along the lines of like, you go do what you want to do to make you happy and functional as a human being, and then you come back and you work for us. I mean, that's the essence of what it was. And so I kept reading these things going, oh, god damn, if I could fucking do that, that'd be great. Or, oh, shit, if I could do that, that'd be awesome. And I was sitting there going, well, I could probably do those things if I wanted
You
to.
could recreate those here.
Yes.
They have just taken the time to do it there.
Absolutely.
Recognizing it there.
Absolutely.
And I would agree with you. I believe Colorado's a little more progressive, not politically, but a little more progressive in its attempt to try to say,
You can't say
you're a
politically.
whole person. You're a whole person. You have to look at what makes you work. Part of what makes you work is knowing that the future will be here for your children.
When did you move to Colorado?
8 months ago.
Can you say, I mean, what is different about, you can't say political is progressive somewhat, progressive democratically,
comes
but
from the word pro and progress.
But then they legalized marijuana, not like California. It's like for medical resources. You can fucking do what you want. That's, to me, almost beyond progressive in the sense of progressive as we know it politically wise. So how can you say politics outside of that are a little more conservative? That's the assumption I made from your comment.
I'm not sure I'm tracking you.
So is Colorado very progressive period for everything?
No. I would say if you look at the people holding office in the state, more Republican than Democrat as representatives, but I think people were looking for a change. But progressive in the sense that they recognized, it's different for every state. They recognized that marijuana was a problem within their community. They would much rather find a way to manage it, much like they manage cigarettes and alcohol. What's to keep them from managing it, being able to actually follow it a little better?
So a management problem became even a bigger management problem.
How do you mean?
because it's statewide. Anybody who lives in Colorado can own their own marijuana plant.
Okay, who's managing the marijuana use and growth here in the state of Iowa?
Well, and I'm not trying to be
Unfortunately,
again.
it's the police force who's stuck with that responsibility, right?
Mm-hmm.
You got to find the people and manage what's going on. Yeah, but
if you make it legal, then people are,
Can do what the
I'm
fuck you
assuming
want.
putting it, applying for a permit so that they can sell it. And now we know what's going on and where
any research that you look at, whether you go to Sweden, which is everybody's sort of go-to country, that is a little more liberal with what they do. There's this, marijuana is legal, and there's this initial rise, and then it goes down. It actually made the actual use and opportunity to use it. It's like
We're all so excited.
There's no rush for it anymore.
Sure.
I did not smoke marijuana. It was just not part of my milieu, though I grew up in the 60s.
Have you ever tried marijuana ever?
Sure.
Can you give us a good story about that?
No, there are no real good stories. Had a brownie at one point, and unfortunately, it goes into your bloodstream from your stomach.
Right, a different
I was
high, a
unprepared,
different
and it came on to me quickly.
You were unprepared.
I had forgotten about it, and I was driving a vehicle at the time, and luckily I had someone with me. I went, "Arr! You have to take over." I had no idea that this was going to happen, but it was not part of my. I'd rather have a glass of wine. Okay, it's as simple as that, and so it was never part of my thing. But I know that some Republicans say get the government out of stuff. So then why not legalize it rather than having the government spend bazillions on trying to deal? I mean, I worked with people who did time in prison for small amounts of marijuana. I was a teacher in a prison once. The argument for removing those 50% of the people who are in our prisons, which now is the percentage is greater than the gulags were back in Russia back in the day. We are the prison country in the world.
Absolutely.
I mean, no one comes close to us. Providing therapy for people who are addicted to things like that, if it's open and people are aware of it, then you can approach it. But if people are smoking marijuana under the table and as prohibition demonstrated, you make it illegal, it's more appealing. There's a risk factor involved. I don't see much greater interest. I would bet that in the population of people who go to the clinics, not the clinics, but the stores in marijuana in Denver area that I'm aware of, is probably not much bigger number of people than originally were smoking it. In other words, they had found it, so they were using it in whatever fashion they could. And other people who now have it available, it's like, yeah, I could use it. Or,
it's like that taboo kind of thing.
There is a bit of appeal to it, I'm sure, for that. People have approached me here in Iowa and said, "Oh my gosh, that must be wonderful." So I was like, "Yeah, I have no interest, so I don't do that. I don't go to the store. It has no appeal to me." But for other people, then they talk about candy and stuff. For me, it's all a big distraction. There are more important things to worry about. And the other thing is, if people are money hungry and greedy, Denver is doing a great job of funding their schools with the extra income that's coming one of the many things that draws income into the government. And they have a great system of people who go out and check the fields. They have to certify stuff. I mean, it's a pretty rigid system.
At the same time, there have been people who have made millions and become millionaires overnight because of this.
Sure.
So even with all the regulations, all the requirements, all the things that are restraining them, so to speak, taxes, they're still making. I mean, even before recently, they said that you can put money in a bank. Before, you couldn't have a certain amount of cash.
The banks were being dicks about it.
And so for a while, you had to have a security guard that took you from place to place because you had so much cash on hand. That's changed now. But even then, that was a whole nother way of making money. You could be a security guard.
Well, the security guard that you have in there can't be like a regular employee. They have to be.
Have you been into a dispensary?
Talk about a job creator.
I went in. I went in and bought a couple of shirts for friends that I knew would be interested. Sure, and
are the T-shirts made out of hemp?
No, and you'd think
oh
they might
my
have been.
God, what's wrong with these people?
But I'm less interested in marijuana and more in the hemp plant.
Sure.
Especially in Iowa. It's a product that could really make significant decreases in fossil fuel use.
I totally
because
agree.
It's locally grown. The hemp houses that are out there's about 5 or 6 demonstration houses in the United States. Pretty impressive. Are they the best structure that's ever been made in the world? I don't know, but they work. They function. They're well insulated. The cost is reduced. It's a material that's pliable that you can, sand the surface of and then paint and cover.
Hemp cement I've heard about.
Yeah, hempcrete.
Hempcrete.
It's a sixth the weight of a cement block. And producing cement is somewhat fossil fuel intensive. And getting yourself to a point where you begin to think of things as fossil fuel heavy in their requirement to produce the product. It was probably something that should have been in place when we began to use fossil fuels. But it was so plentiful and so cheap that it was inevitable, I think, once found that it was going to be used. It's just taken us a long time to put the brakes on and take a good look at it.
Well, isn't that better?
The brakes are on, but the bus that we're on or the train we're on is skidding right to the cliff. And that's, to me, what prompts me to take some action. Because the brakes are on, but they're not doing much. They're not slowing the engine down.
And that's why you had to learn to tuck and roll, everybody. Tuck and roll.
But I feel like, though, if we recognize that it wasn't a conspiracy, that not everybody is out to cause some kind of like global harm, or it's all about one guy is trying to make
if you've
$10
seen
trillion
the movie that Charlie Sheen did with the aliens that came down to the world, and do you ever see that one with Charlie Sheen?
No.
You didn't see that one?
Is it that bad that I have no idea what you're talking about?
Oh God, what was it called? Well, the aliens came down. They were trying to heat
to be a documentary.
No.
It wasn't.
They were trying to like heat up the atmosphere. They were trying to create more
Martians, whatever.
Oh, okay.
More global warming.
Well, blame somebody else.
I have no idea.
Being
Wow,
responsible
surprising.
ourselves.
It's a ridiculous movie, but I only bring it up because it's so ridiculous. But then again, the things that we do as a society, as a government, as politicians, seem so ass backwards.
That's why I keep.
They were like, "Hey, we should not hold that gun to our head, and we should not have it loaded." Then why are you pointing it at your fucking head?
That's why I'm saying that maybe if it's not all conspiracy, it's not all a bad
it's just
thing.
we do things that are so stupid that it's like well, that's actually a good movie premise. Maybe aliens did come down. They're trying to ruin this planet because what we're doing is so stupid.
Or we step back and we say it's not all a conspiracy. It was a very plentiful fuel source at one point. So why would we would not focus? We would focus on that.
But
now that we know that it's
now
not,
that we're addicted. Now that we're so used to it, and it's so easy to get. The system is there. The pipelines are there. The gas dealerships are there. The cars that they're producing more electric cars, but I just saw every car company has 7 or 8 new gas models. If we're moving away from that or need to, it would seem that you would have to start powering down from those.
And again,
the other thing is if there's the money still yet to be extracted, I'm willing to be convinced that maybe climate change is not as drastic as we think, which allows me to make some money. So anything I can do to muddy up the water, the discussion, the conversation, so that I can continue to do what I need to do until the inevitable happens, because anybody in the fuel industry knows it's inevitable, including the head of the Saudi fuel company who says, I know it's coming. So I'm going to drop my prices as low as I can. So I put some of those guys who are doing tar sands, which is extremely expensive.
It's the worst.
Horribly polluting. I'll take those guys out of the business. I'll take a lot of people out of it, but I'll make sure all my stuff gets extracted.
Yeah.
Sure, I'll get half price on it, but I get it all extracted as opposed to having to leave it in the ground. So that was his move, which brought the price down. That's what a lot of it has to do with that Saudi decision to not reduce their production once the glut came.
Earlier we were talking.
Tomorrow you'll see me hang myself.
We were talking so positively of, and Rick, you were talking about. You know what? It'd be good if you should be doing something that makes you happy, and then if you're doing a job that makes you happy, then you would have time to focus on other things. When you're doing a job that doesn't make you happy, then you get home and you're like, I got to do the kids and the sports, and I just wish I had some time to myself to make me happy. You know what would make me happy, Todd?
Penises?
If people could please donate to our new Indiegogo account. Our new Indiegogo, that's our crowdfunding. Thank you. I was trying to...
Interesting. I didn't say it was a good
Yeah, you did not see it coming because he's so good.
Yeah, no, it wasn't that great. But anyway, I would like to say this before we get going into saying goodbye to Rick. Thank you very much for
I really appreciate you being open and thoughtful about all the horrible, shitty things I threw at you, because I love having somebody who's positive, because I obviously...
You did a great job of staying positive.
I think that I follow along the same lines that you do, but I bump into so many people throughout my life on a daily basis who have just fucked up points of view about things that I have to...
Sorry about that, buddy.
It's not you. No, that it helps me find a way of guiding my way through the waters. It's not about, it's about being like detaching yourself from emotional and saying, well, I can... It's like the sniper thing. Okay, so you love the military and you love this and you love that. You know what? I can appreciate that. I understand where you're coming from.
He's that little
I
light
still
in the
think
darkness.
that Chris, what's his face, was fucked up because he liked fucking killing people. But I can understand your point of view, and I don't have to hate you because of that. And the point of view you talked about earlier with the guy you worked with. Mm-hmm. I appreciate you stepping back and helping us learn a little bit.
So, if you want to go check some of the things out that we talked about today, go to citizensclimatelabbey.org.
Yep.
There's also, not that, but that was kind of cool too, the hexagonal solar panels for the road. Transition United States.
Transition US.
TransitionUS.org. Yeah.
And that, maybe if we could just throw a little in there,
sure,
is a 500 plus cities around the world that are attempting to, at a community-wide basis, try to address the issue of climate change, fossil fuel depletion, which they call peak oil, and make their communities more resilient in an effort to, can't change the government, but I can change my small community. And that started from just one guy writing a book. And all of those things are being done somewhere, not just in those communities, somewhere in the world, in some small town. All of these projects are in place. You need to look for them and find them because they're out there.
Also, you can check out the Transition Companion, Making Your Community More Resilient in Uncertain Times. That's a book, and that is in. You can get that at Amazon.
Sure.
So are you gonna make Animosa some kind of like crazy global green hot spot? Because there's a town in was it New Hampshire? New Hampshire? What about Bob?
Oh, jeez, I didn't know.
I didn't know either.
Yeah, okay. I love when I'm by myself.
Great segue.
I love it when I'm by myself in my fucking stupid shit
In your own mind.
Yeah, exactly. There's a town in New Hampshire, I think, that's like completely green. They produce everything.
100%. Yes, 100% renewable. But look closely. It's tough to become 100% this quickly. So, yeah, I would have...
if you could turn a factory from turn out Model A cars into fucking helmets or tanks...
In 6 months? Yeah,
it can be possible.
Absolutely. So, yes, there are a number of small towns working towards that. And I think most people are discovering, golly, this may be the only way we can do it.
Can you say that one more time? Golly, one more time.
Gee whiz, yeah. I was trying to contrast the many fucks and whatever.
Golly gee willikers, this is terrible.
Now I completely lost my train of
thought.
Sorry,
I'm sorry.
I guess my point was, most people are recognizing the whole. You remember the comment? Think globally, act locally, right?
Yeah.
Sure.
These people are taking that to heart and saying, really, that's the only thing I seem to be able to affect. I can, in my community, create greater localization. I can get a CSA started in my community. I can help the people in my community who are likely to eat trash because that's all they can afford. I can help them eat better, which makes them healthier, doesn't put a demand on the health system, and we solve 5 or 6 problems just in the process of doing the right thing. I think that's, to me, inspiring. However, then there are the government who's considering raising the minimum wage.
You're so nice and optimistic.
20 states just said, screw it, we can't wait for you. We're going to raise it anyway. 20 states. We're
To $10, right? $10.
10, some 15, some $12.50. I think I was considering moving it from $7.50 to $8.25.
Walmart went to $10 an hour.
Great job, Iowa.
Right?
Great job, Iowa.
Dude, listen, we have a really old man as our governor.
It's all right.
You know, and I'm not trying to belittle, but you can't expect crazy new ideas to come out of a.
Yeah.
You know.
Listen, we gotta we gotta sum this
I think
up.
Terry and I are similar age.
How old are you?
How old is Terry?
I don't fucking know.
Listen, we gotta wrap this thing up.
Old enough.
My computer's about out of power.
Okay.
I can't give it to any more, Jim.
Is this your power cord? That's interesting.
No, that's my
No, it's-
HDMI.
HDMI.
To that.
Yeah.
So check out those things that we were talking about earlier, the 350.org, which
Citizens
is pretty
Climate
cool.
Lobby.
Transitions
And
United.
transition
US.org.
towns, transition initiatives, the transition concept.
All that stuff. Thanks, Rick, for coming on. Also wanted to give a big shout out to Jeff Johnson once again for Penguins Comedy Club. Go to penguinscomedyclub.com. Check out his upcoming comedians. Doug T, the hypnotist, is awesome. It's very funny. I know him personally. Great guy.
Wonderful
very funny
guy.
comedian.
Yeah. So what year were you born in?
At the end of 48.
The
So
end
I'm
of 48. So
66
Branston
right
was
now.
born in 46.
Oh, so he is older.
Just 2 years.
Yeah.
2
older
years.
than me.
That's nothing. 2 years.
I'm sorry.
Go-
One of the most active environmentalists
You
I
are-
know is 96.
You are killing me, Todd. You're killing me. Go to USAEntertainmentAgency.com. Try to lock in, schedule an entertainer to come to you for
Please.
a wedding, festivals, fairs, corporate, college, whatever.
Give Jeff all your money.
Yeah,
That's all that matters.
Yeah, because Jeff is a pretty great guy.
Yep.
Ask Mike Armstrong, who works with Jeff.
You heard how much pussy he gets, so.
Not Jeff, but Mike.
Mike Armstrong.
You know what, Todd?
Yeah.
Oh, real quick before I hand you the reins, and we got to go real quick.
Yeah.
It's about dead. Thank you to everybody who did help, who clicked on, who logged on, who shared the link for our Kickstarter campaign. We didn't meet our goal, which is it's a learning experience,
Yep.
folks, and we'll get there someday. But I do want to say a very special thank you to everybody who did contribute to that, and
Absolutely.
my appreciation is definitely out there. I appreciate that very, very much to everybody who did contribute to that. And now your money's back to you. But guess what? Because we weren't successful in that, we're going to open up another Kickstarter campaign. But it's not Kickstarter. It's Indiegogo. So if you go to Indiegogo.com and you search, you click in the little search, and you type in TPSP.
Yep.
Guess what?
Will
You'll
pop
find
up.
our new crowdfunding campaign, which we would actually be able to use any funds that is donated to us.
Yeah,
Excellent.
it's a tad different from Kickstarter that we can anything you give, we get to have. And I like Kickstarter because it's done so many great things for so many people. But Indiegogo is kind of nice because whatever we get, we get.
Yeah,
And that's a pretty
and we're still
a
offering
pretty
the
nice
same
thing.
prizes.
and
So
you'll be putting it to use in
we will be putting it to use for equipment, and for some of the equipment that we're hoping still to get is something that we can use so we can do live shows, or we can turn around very quickly a
Podcasts.
show
Yeah.
and put it out maybe the next day or that night for comedians who are coming into town, and maybe they're going to be performing in 2 nights and they want that out on YouTube right away to help advertise for their show.
Perfect, yeah.
Or for other podcasters or other professionals that want to come in, do a commercial or do a show, and they want it to be live, and they want to say every Monday night at 6 o'clock it's going to be live. So that money, the money that we're hoping to raise, will go towards equipment like that. So please check out Indiegogo, type in TPSP, and you'll find it, TPSP Productions. Go ahead and donate if you can. If you can't, share the link. I'd appreciate it. Todd, take over for me.
Some final words.
Final
if
words.
you go to tpspproductions.com, you will find our website, and along the toolbar at the top, you'll find shows. And while you're there, you can click on, I believe, the Primal Scream, and then there's the Count to 10 podcasts, and there's the Bandwagon, which is a phenomenal, funny podcast that you can listen to. While you're there, please follow us on iTunes and Stitcher and on YouTube. And we would love to have any kind of feedback or comments from you about what we could do better, different. If you think we're assholes, please let me know.
Hey, if you got something to say,
it's not gonna be hard.
Interesting.
It's not going to be hard. Fill me in on what my perspective is wrong on, and I'd be happy to enjoy that conversation. I'd love to have that. So please fill us in any way you can. But we just want to have your feedback.
Sure. Cool conversations. Things
Absolutely.
like that.
That's all.
I'd appreciate it.
We had a cool conversation tonight. It fucking lasted forever.
And
It did go on, yeah.
But it was good, though. It went on, but it was a good conversation.
it was a good
Yeah.
conversation. Thanks again, Rick. That's it for tonight on Primal Screen Podcast. I'm Matt.
I'm guessing Todd.
You're guessing? Well, you've had too much to drink. And that's Rick Sanborn. Thank you, buddy, for coming in.
you.
We'll see you later.
Appreciate it. Thanks.
Adios.
Good night.
No wonder it's fun. I can see that that's enjoyable.